unto Yahuwah, for he is great. Yes, he is great. Oh, give thanks unto Yahuwah, for he is great. Yes, he is great. For he is worthy, worthy. For he is great. Yes, he is great. For he is worthy, worthy. For he is great. Yes, he is great. For he is worthy, worthy. For he is great. Yes, he is great. For he is worthy, worthy. For he is great. Yes, he is great. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the power of Yahuwah rise among us. Let the praises of our King rise among us. Let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, 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 let it rise. Oh, oh, let it rise. Oh, oh, let it rise. Oh, let it Yahuwah, I thirst for you, and I long to be in your presence. My soul will wait on you. Abba, draw me nearer, draw me nearer to the beauty of your Ruach. Yahuwah, I thirst for you, and I long to be in your presence. My soul will wait on you. Abba, draw me nearer, draw me nearer to the beauty of your Ruach. Yahuwah, I thirst for you, and I long I will wait for you. Oh, Yahuwah, in the beauty of your ruah. I will worship you. Oh, Yahuwah, in the beauty of your ruah. I will wait for you. Oh, Yahuwah, in the beauty of your ruah. I will worship you. Oh, Yahuwah, in the beauty of your ruah. Yahuwah, I thirst for you, and I long to be in your presence. My soul will wait on you. Abba, draw me nearer, draw me nearer to the beauty of your ruah. Yahuwah, I thirst for you, and I long to be in your presence. My soul will wait on you. Abba, draw me nearer to the beauty of your ruah. I will wait for you. Oh, Yahuwah, in the beauty of your ruah. I will worship you. Oh, Yahuwah, in the beauty of your ruah. Yahuwah, I thirst for you, and I long to be in your presence. My soul will wait on you. Abba, draw me nearer, draw me nearer to the beauty of your ruah. Come on, Baruch, Allah Yahuwah, praise him for yet another Sabbath that we have come together to give him praise and to commemorate and celebrate a time of rest. I pray that your Layla was sweet and that your Layla was full of the shalom of Abba Yahuwah and you rested well. Once again, I want to say greetings from Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Ministries located in South Carolina. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your presence as we prepare to go into class on this, great Yom. We want to begin with the Baruch of the Torah. Repeat with me, Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all the
Who
peoples.
selected us from all the people.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Now we will have the reading of the Ten Commandments done by Mattathias. And it is so.
Coming from Devarim, 5th chapter, 6 through 22nd verse. Aleph. I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bed of slavery. Bet you shall have another power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the Abbas upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that hate me and keep my commandments. Gimel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalet, set apart, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, esteem your Ab and your Ima as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. Why? You shall not murder. Saying, neither shall you commit adultery. Het, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's Isha, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. Devarim chapter 6, verses 1 through 18, and it reads, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you're going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the yamim of your life, and that your yamim may be prolonged. Excuse me. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema Yasharal. Yahuwah is our power. Yahuwah is Akkad. Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuwah our supreme one. Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall ahab Yahuwah your supreme one with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this yom shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall, to what?
To bind to the mind.
To bind to the mind. Give Torah access to your mind. It's important we give it access to our mind. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things that you filled not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other power, or the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies, and his statutes which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah your Abba swore, which Yahuwah swore unto your Abbas. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right, let us turn our attention to Yahush, the son of Nun, chapter 1. And we're going to begin with verse 7. We're going to read verse 7, and then we're going to confess verse 8. And it is so.
And it is so.
Verse 7 says, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I've tailored it to fit our time of personal confession. Let us repeat this together. I will not let this scroll of the Torah
I will not let the scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth,
depart out of my mouth,
but I shall meditate in it,
but I shall meditate in it,
Yom and Layla, that I may observe to do
that I may observe to do
according to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
But then I shall make my way prosperous,
and then I shall act wisely.
and then I shall act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor and tell your other neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, say it again. I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so very important that we act wisely, regardless of what may be going on in our lives. Very important for us to be people of wisdom. And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us have one more song, please. My heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. My heart, my life, it all belongs to you. Belongs to you. Belongs to you. Singing in my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. My heart, my life, it all belongs to you. 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 Sing in my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. belong to you, belong to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Sing in my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. My heart, my life, it all belongs to you. Belong to you, belong 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 to you. Sing in the air we breathe. It all belongs to you. The song we sing, it all belongs to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Sing in the air we breathe. It all belongs to you. The song we sing, it all belongs to you. Belong to you, belong 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 to you. Sing in my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. My heart, my life, it all belongs to you. Belong to you, belong 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 to you. Sing in my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. My heart, my life, it all belongs to you. Belong to you, belong 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 to you. Sing in the air we breathe. It all belongs to you. The song we sing, it all belongs to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Belong to you, belong to you. Belong to you, belong to you. belong to you.
belong to you.
Sing in the air we breathe. It all belongs to you. The songs we sing, it all belongs to you. Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Sing in the air we breathe. It all belongs to you. The songs we sing, it all belongs to you. Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Belong to you.
Sing in my heart,
My mind, my soul belongs to you. My heart, my life, it all belongs to you.
belong 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 to you.
Come on, give it to him, give it to him. Praise him, praise him, praise him. Worthy, worthy is our King. Yahuwah is worthy of all praise, worthy of all esteem. Yahuwah, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. And we do celebrate you, we do praise you, we do esteem you. Because of your heart towards us, we adore you. We adore you. As we gather here on this great Yom to celebrate and commemorate a time of rest. Mishli 15:8, the sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination, hateful, and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yahuwah. Excuse me, but the prayer of the upright, it is your delight. Mishli 3:4, so shall you find great understanding and high esteem in the sight or judgment of Yahuwah and man. Ayah 33:4, the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Somebody say he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Say it again, he is a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Yes, he is. Micah 3:8, for truly I am full of power by the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, and of judgment and of might to declare unto Yaakov his transgression and to Yahshua all his sin. Excuse me. Tehillim 34:15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears are open unto our cry. Verse 17, the upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth and delivereth them out of all their troubles. No matter what we may be facing, no matter what we may be enduring, the cry of the upright, Yahuwah hears, and he will deliver us out of all our troubles and out of all our dilemmas. And it is so.
And it is so.
Masa, Acts 1:8, but truly you shall receive power after that. The Ruach HaKodesh is come upon you, and you shall be witnesses unto him, both in Jerusalem and all Judea, and in Shamara, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And it is so.
And it is so.
Tehillim 1:1. Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the instructions of Abba Yahuwah, and he doth meditate upon it. Ibram 11:6. But without belief it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. As we prepare to do our affirmations. Excuse me. But before we do our affirmations, we want to go into Yehukanan Aleph chapter 2, 5, and 6. Very important for us to keep on the fires of our hearts. Always important for us to keep this on the fire of our hearts, to keep us, I won't say motivated, but keep us grounded. Keep us grounded. 2, 5, and 6. And it reads, but whoever guards his Torah, truly the Ahab of Yahuwah has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. The one who says he lives in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. So it's important that we understand, in order to apply chapter 5 of Aleph Yehukanan, it is important that we guard the Torah and walk as Yahush walked.
Right.
But how do we know how he walked if we don't study his life? So it's important that we study his life. And watch this. Even study the lives of those that followed him and kept a great record, being a witness to the great things that he did and to the promises that he made. So it's important that we remember these things, excuse me, and follow them. And it is so.
And it is so.
Yehukanan Aleph chapter 5, 3 through 15. And it reads, for this is the Ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands. And his commands are not difficult. Somebody say his commands are not difficult.
His commands are not difficult.
Because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has overcome the world, our belief. Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah? This is the one that came by water and blood, Yahush Mashiach, not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach who bears witness, because the Ruach is the truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood. And the three are in agreement. If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is greater, because this is the witness of Yahuwah, which he has witnessed concerning his son. I want to take a break right there, and I want to interject this. The reason why the witness of Yahuwah is more important and more powerful than the witness of man is because, have you ever noticed that man can recant on his witness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That man's witness can be thwarted and can be altered and changed, but the witness of Yahuwah can't be bribed, can't be thwarted, and can't be changed.
That's right.
But man's witness, based upon his or her conditions, based upon his or her position and what's going on in their lives or in our lives, we can quickly and easily change our witness. But the witness that Yahuwah has given unto us can't be changed, can't be altered, can't be manipulated. And so it is very important to us, or for us, to understand the impact that the witness that Yahuwah has given unto us is important for us to receive and not reject it.
That's right.
Because every other witness can be manipulated. Man's witness can be manipulated. How so? Somebody can believe today, and a situation can come in their lives, and if they're really not grounded, it can cause them to change their very confession of belief.
That's right.
We're seeing it every day. And this is why we have to be grounded. Somebody say, ground me, Abba Yahuwah.
Ground me, Abba Yahuwah.
Say it again, ground me, Abba Yahuwah.
Ground me, Abba Yahuwah.
We need to be grounded in his truth. We have the witnesses. Now let's hold on to the witnesses.
That's right.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Verse 10, the one who believes in the Son of Yahuwah has the witness in himself. The one who does not believe Yahuwah has made him a liar, because he has not believed the witness that Yahuwah has given concerning his son. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life, and this life is in his son. He who possesses the son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. And this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. But remember, it has to be the desire of Abba Yahuwah. How do we know his desires? By reading his instructions, and there we find his desires. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we want to turn our attention to the affirmations. And then from our affirmations, we want to turn our attention to our declaration. And from our declaration to our covering and sealing of our time of praise, prayer, and worship. And it is so.
And it is so.
Repeat with me. I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
That life is the Torah of Yasharal.
That life is the Torah of Yasharal.
I purpose to walk in
I purpose to walk in
the Torah of life.
the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's ahab
Yahuwah's Ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is leading me.
He is leading me.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach
The Ruach
HaKodesh
HaKodesh
of Yahuwah in me
of Yahuwah in me
is leading me.
is leading me.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her lead.
I'll walk in the Torah.
I'll walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now let us repeat our declaration. Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
in the name of Yahush,
in the name of Yahush,
our Mashiach,
our Mashiach,
we subdue ignorance
we subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people,
our people,
Yasharal.
Yasharal.
We unite
We unite
not to fight,
not to fight,
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
And it is so.
I decree a time of rest, shalom, and truth in Yahuwah, and it is so.
And it is so.
Let us prepare to bow before our King to seal this our time of praise, prayer, and worship. And it is so.
And it is so.
Repeat with me. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 14, and it is so.
And it is so.
You may be seated in his presence. Excited about being here once again in this place to celebrate and commemorate our time of rest, to fortify ourselves, to build our belief, excuse me, be in a position that the Abba may reveal unto us revelation knowledge,
Right.
that he may open unto us his treasure chest of knowledge,
Yes.
that we may mhm, that we may embark upon great things and knowing and learning the things that he has hidden in his writings for us.
That's right.
Very important for us to look at these things. Thank you. Very important for us to look at these things, examine them, so that we can grow by them. While you're turning your attention to Bereshit chapter 49, and we're going to begin at verse 1, I want to just share something that was on my heart this morning, and also I want to reflect back on last Layla on chapter 48. But I want to say this, and it's not dealing with the writings, but it is still something that is important for us to be conscious of. And maybe we know of a young person or someone that knows of a young person that knows of a young person. Well, on last Layla, we were watching the animated, was it animated or cartoon? What is it? Wreck-It Ralph?
Yeah.
Wreck-It Ralph 2. And the reason why I want to bring this out is because as we watched it and we began to critique it, there was a lot of things that we began to see that was not child friendly. And the reason why I'm saying this is because sometimes, many people have children and many people don't, but then you may know someone that has small children. And the thing that we really found an issue with is that here it is. If you've ever seen the first one is about a little girl they're in the gaming world. And anybody knows about gaming and all that great stuff. She's in the gaming world, her and Wreck-It Ralph. And Wreck-It Ralph is this big old, kept calling him hobo, but he's this big old caveman looking European. And he goes around and he tears up a lot of stuff. And so the first one is a lot of things that transpire. But the thing of it is, it brings this grown man and this little child together as friends. Now follow what I'm saying, as friends. So you have a grown man and a little girl. She couldn't be no more than what, 7? It's about 7 or 8. And they become the best of friends. She's a she's a race car driver in the gaming world. Excuse me. And so they basically have no parents, no parental guidance. And so in this, you see these two become the greatest of friends. Now the issue becomes a problem, even in the first one, but the second one, as we watched the second one, and we began to see how things began to happen, and her game basically got to a point where it got messed up, and they ended up having to unplug it. And yes, I'm going to do the spoiler alert on this one. And the game got unplugged. And so, he and her went on a quest to go to get into Wi-Fi, so they go to eBay and purchase the steering wheel so that she could get her game could be plugged back up and she could begin to go back into her what would be considered normal life. So they go through all these series of things. Now, mind you, she's just 7 years old and she has built a bond and a relationship with this grown man. They're inseparable. And so many would say, well, I don't understand the problem. Well, the problem comes in is this man is a total stranger to her, but they become friends. And in the second one, you began to see that here she goes into this other game where it's really dealing with a lot of, R-rated material, nothing exotic or sensual. But the bottom line is that she is introduced into this other way of life because she is with this grown man who now they began to go through a series of things. And so she goes into this world, and they're trying to raise money to get the steering wheel for the gaming console so that the gaming console can come back on. But now she's introduced to a whole nother vein of life where there's stealing involved in driving cars and killing people. And this is the life that she dreamed about. And this is the life she wanted to be in. But Wreck-It Ralph wanted her to go back to the life that she had, driving cars in Candyland and doing things like that. But she didn't want that. She wanted a life of crime and wanted to get in this. Now, many would say, but it's just a movie. No, it is not just a movie. It is very impressionable on young children. Because if you know young children, that are creative, and children at a very young age are very impressionable. And this is the time that they are moldable, where you can mold them. And this is why many times our children get caught up in a lot of things, because a lot of stuff we allow them to watch, and if we're not watching it with them, just believing, oh, it's just a movie, it's a children's movie. What could the harm be? There's a lot can be in it, because now what that does is says it's all right for a 7 or 8 year old to bond with a grown man and become friends with him. That's abnormal.
That's right.
There's something wrong with that picture. And so this is truly wrong. And when you have predators on the internet, and most of the children have access to internet, even my 10-year-old now, he turned 10 yesterday, 10-year-old has access to the internet, but he has supervision. He has brothers that watch what he is indulging in, and watching anybody that comes and tries to talk with him and indulge in conversation with him, because he's still a child. And so if he's not protected, there are predators out there that will try to do things and say things that will try to draw him out. Now, you have to understand, once again, the reason why I'm putting this warning out there is because you may know somebody that's young. You may know somebody that has younger children. These are the things that we have to be aware of, because you don't want somebody's young child to get the impression that they have a right to bond with a grown man they know nothing of and become friends with. Now, you have to understand the reason why it is important to me, because I found myself in a situation like that when I was a little girl. So I understand how quick these things can flip if you're not careful. All except it wasn't just one, it was a bunch of hippies that I became friends with. It's crazy, but I lived in California, near the Bay Area in Berkeley. And we had a lot of hippies around there. And I just was one of those type of children that I could deal with anybody. And I became friends with hippies. Truthfully. And these were all grown. And you know how old I was? Around 7 or 8. And I became friends with them. And they protected me to a certain degree. But let me tell you something. It's still dangerous, and it's a very unhealthy situation to be in. So don't tell me situations like that can't come up, because they can. But this is to warn us, because you have to understand, all cartoons and all things of that nature are not always child friendly. They plant certain ideas in our children's heads and hearts. And you have to understand, just like our children are watching them, you got predators that's watching it. Oh, I'm your friend. I would never hurt you. And they gain that trust, and then the next thing you know, they're missing. So it's important, like I said, I wanted to put that out there for people to be aware. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, watch it. Find it and watch it. She gets into a worse situation. Now she's driving and doing all this stuff. And like I say, you have to understand, excuse me, this is the platform that now society is offering babies. Because if you still... if you're 12, you're still a baby to me. I don't care if you're 25, you're still a baby to me. Are you following me?
Yes.
That's right. You're still a baby, because you still ain't close to me. You got some ways to go. But the bottom line is that we have to protect the young and the innocent, so that they don't become the wild and the turned out.
That's right.
Or violated. So it's up to us to do these things. So I wanted to put that out there because I want us to be aware of the things that's going on. And I know sometimes, we say, well, I don't have any children. I don't even know anybody that young, but you may know somebody that does. And just warn them. The warnings are out there and we constantly warn. And you have to understand our people definitely need to be warned. Because these are some of the things that we have to be careful of. So once again, I just wanted to put that out there because that was what was on my heart this morning, thinking about that and how if we're not careful, we can let cartoons be a major driving force in the arena of deception and misleading young babies.
Yeah.
And being the prey to a predator. Because they believe, oh, he's my friend. He would never do that. And they ain't going to do nothing in the beginning. They going to wait till they get when their confidence and their guard is down. So it's important that we understand it. So I wanted to put that out there once again. So as we as a people can be watchful and protect as many innocent children and babies as we possibly can.
God.
And it is so. And it is so. All right, let us turn our attention to Bereshit, chapter 49. Excuse me. And our theme, as we have come to the close of Bereshit, it is Wayechi, and it means and he lived, and he lived. And as we went through chapters 47 and 48, we began to see many of great things concerning Yaakov, Yasharal, and his sons, Yosef. And now we're getting ready to see as he begins to speak over his sons' lives. And as I said on last Layla, the importance of speaking into your children's lives. You don't have to wait until they are grown and nearly knocking at your door in age, but you can speak in their lives while they are young. So when that time comes, you are not telling them something new. You are just reiterating what you've already spoken into their lives while they were younger. So this is very important for us to understand. Why is it important for us to understand? Because you have to understand whatever you speak into their lives, whatever you invest in them is what's going to be remembered. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's going to be remembered. Very important for us to understand this. Okay. Excuse me. Very important. Now, as we looked at him giving the Baruch over the lives of his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, which were his grandsons, but he technically was their Abba. How can we say technically? Because everything that came through the matrix of his sons became his. This is how he became the Abba of many nations and how his quiver was full. Now I want to say this into alluding to, I know many times we get tired of hearing about polygamy, but because people are still trying to promote that way of life, believing that that is the only way to see the expansion or the growth of our people, which is absolutely out of context and error. Right. You have to understand, after he reached a certain age, he wasn't bringing forth any more children. And I believe that even if he could, he didn't want to. Because the ahab of his life was gone. He didn't want nobody else. That's why he showed who he was, who he esteemed above the rest. And that was Joseph and Benjamin, because they were the children of his Isha, his true Isha. And so the thing of it is that you have to look at it. Whatever children he had, when they had children, that became a part of his quiver. Did that mean if they were taken from him and they didn't show up as his son's children? Absolutely not. But they were added in the line of being his sons. Are you following me? The problem comes in today's time. You got one man thinking that he has to have five wives in order to repopulate the earth. That command was not given to one or two men. It was not. That means that when you have children, whether you have sons and daughters, when they have children, that's adding your quiver.
Sorry.
That means you expand. But because you have people out there with lust issues, that's what I said, lust issues. And I know many times people don't like it and they want to come and say, well, really it is. It is not acceptable because you cannot find in the writings where Yahuwah endorsed it. And even though he told Dawood, I would give you this if you would have asked it, you have to understand that was not the conversation that you butt into. That was a conversation between him and a king. Not everybody else. And we tend to take these things, which was an exception, and try to make it a rule. Anytime you try to make an exception a rule, you're going to have problems. And this is why we're in the situation we're in. All the brothers that are incarcerated, you mean tell me they don't want no wives? You mean to tell me all the brothers that's walking around here that's looking for a suitable mate don't want a wife? And you trying to grab 5 and you already have 1. That means there's a problem in the home, in the structure, and it needs to be fixed. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And when it is fixed, you will find that you don't have to bring everybody in. You having 5 and 6 wives, and then they always want to post up the pictures, the sister wives and their best friends. Sweetheart, let me tell you something. That's just a front. That is just a front, and it won't last but for so long. And that's the truth. And if you really notice, the only thing really we see that remains consistent with having more, and that's animals. Animals, lions have, what is it, prides? Yes. People don't have prides, but they want to say we are supposed to, or they're supposed to have more, men are supposed to have more wives. That's unfair. Because no matter what, one person can still only give a person a certain amount of time. And that means your time as a woman has to be divided with somebody else. But watch this. His time has to be divided as well because he has to basically take that time. But if he chooses not to spend any time with the other wife, guess what? It is in his court to do so if you listen to them. Right. So that's truly unfair. So we got to get out of that mindset and really begin to look that when he builds, he does it not like a pyramid scheme, but he does it that if you bring forth, then your children bring forth, then your children bring forth, and it builds a tree. And from that tree, you build and you have more. Are you following me? Yes. Very important. So understand he was alluding to these are my children too. Now let's look at, chapter 48, the last verse. And 48. I want to look at that. No, I want to look at verse 14. And the crossing of the hands. Now, one of the things that we learn in chapter 48, verse 14, is that when Joseph brought his sons to Yasharal to pray the Baruch over them, when Joseph put them in the presence of Yaakov, slow down. In the presence of Yaakov, what he did was he put the oldest first and the younger second, assuming automatically that this was the divine plan of Abba Yahuwah. And so even though Yaakov's eyes, Yasharal's eyes were dim, he still understood the presence of Abba Yahuwah and the guidance of Yahuwah, where he crossed his hands over to place the Baruch where it belonged. Now, once again, the importance of understanding this is you have to see why it made Joseph angry and why Joseph felt like, hey, he doesn't understand what he's doing, but you must understand he did because he had bestowed the same thing upon Joseph. Joseph was the youngest, the second youngest of the 12. But Joseph had what we would call in today's terms, the power of attorney over everything that belonged to Yasharal. He had, he saw over his livelihood and he saw over everything that was his. This is why I'm inclined to believe that when they came to Mitzrayim, and he told them, he said, now, not only am I going to take care of you, but I'm going to take care of your children and your children's children. Why? Because you have to understand that responsibility was placed upon him through Yaakov. It was placed upon him to do so. This is not just something he just thought up out of his head and say, hey, you know what, I'm rolling like that, so this is what I'll do. No, it was bestowed upon him by being the leader. He took the role and the responsibility, or it was placed upon him by, first of all, Abba Yahuwah, then his Abba followed, and this is what was placed upon him, and this is why he did what he did and taking care of them, because that was a part of his responsibility as being what? The elder son, because he steps into the place of the Abba. Are y'all following?
Yes.
All right. Now we're going to look at this footnote that as I was reading, I thought was very, very informative. Excuse me. That helps us to understand too why Joseph had an issue with this being done. Okay, because he probably also, we can just kind of say he probably also felt that if this was done, the same thing that befell him could also befall his youngest son with his older brother. Are you following me?
Yes.
Why? Because you have to understand he was put in that position, and because he was put in that position, what happened? His brothers hated him. But you have to understand he had something to do with that too. What did he have to do with that? He was immature, and the way he carried himself, always tattletelling. And then he would go back and lie. It's one thing if you tell the truth on a person, it's another thing when you lie on them.
Right.
And they hated him. They hated him with a passion. Excuse me. So you can probably imagine that what was running through his head was, I don't want this same thing to befall my son. I don't want that to happen to him. So no, we're going to leave the order the way it's supposed to be, but that's not the order that Abba Yahuwah had designed for it to be. Are you following?
Yes.
All right. Now to look at the order, give you my Baruch. This Baruch is one that transfers the leadership of the clan to the next generation. Now you have to understand how many generations that went past. Are you following me?
Yes.
Reuben was the oldest, but it did not hit Reuben. Neither did it hit Simeon. Neither did it hit Shimeon, Lewi, Dan. It didn't hit any of them, but it passed down to Joseph. Are you following me?
Yes.
If the inheritance remained undivided for some time, which was common, the privileged son, usually the firstborn, was designated the administrator of the estate. Excuse me. The administrator had significant control of the estate. His roles included presiding at sacrificial meals celebrated by the family. Now, I want to take another sidebar. Remember when Esau didn't want any parts of his birthright? Why? Because birthrights, being the oldest son, meant also that you had to participate in certain things. Right. Remember, it was also alluded to that Esau did not show up or did not go to any of the times where it dealt with Torah class. He would always go to the woods and he would always go and hunt. Are you following me? Yeah. So he didn't participate in those things. So by the time he got to the point where he was famished and about to die after fighting with his uncle, Nimrod, he didn't kill him, but he wounded him. Right. After fighting with him, but watch this, killing those that were around him. Now he's starving and he is hungry and he needs something to eat. And when he comes in, he says, give me a bowl of that, in other words, that red pottage. Or the red beans. And so Yaakov says, well, sell me your birthright. Why does he press upon him? Because he sees he's not involved. He does not want any parts of going and sitting and listening and learning about Torah. He wanted no parts in learning how to be a part of the sacrificial office. Now, somebody will say, how do you know they were sacrificing? Because even in that time, they were still offering up to Abba Yahuwah.
Right.
He didn't want any parts of that. He wanted to go out there and run with the wild animals. He wanted to be out there and he wanted to be a sportsman, a hunter. And many times when you say this, the first thing people think about are the Edomites. I'm about to say the Edomites. The Edomites. And they begin to think that they are the European people. They are not the European people.
That's right.
European people did not live in tents. They lived in caves. But if you look, the people that lived in tents were the Arabs and those that were over in the desert areas. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
They are the ones. And because we don't really see them hunt, and doesn't mean that they are not hunters, but because you see now, and watch this, because Europeans are nothing more than chameleons. They take on the shape or the form of the people that they deal with. They take on the characteristics of the people they try to destroy. Look at how they have done us. They're culture vultures.
Right.
They steal what is not theirs, and then they try to perfect it to make you believe that it belongs to them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand this. Why? Because when we understand this, then we will remove their faces from being Esau.
Right.
Because you have to understand, when you put them in the position of Esau, you make them your first cousin. You make them your first cousin. And we can't do that because they are not. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. But here, once again, he did not want it. And so he passed it over. Now, listen what he says. And this was his role as the firstborn. His role included presiding at sacrificial meals celebrated by the family, supervising burials and funerary rites, and serving as kinsman redeemer. Yaakov and Rebekah on his behalf would desire this because it was also in the administrator's hands, to approve the timing for the division of the inheritance. If Esau were the administrator, he could presumably delay the division indefinitely and thus deprive Yaakov of the advantage of the double share of the inheritance. Now, once again, this is just talking about them, but it also alludes to Joseph's sons, what was bestowed upon him. The Baruch also served as a proclamation of the destiny of the sons. It was not accorded the same status as a prophecy from Yahuwah. Note, Isaac uses the first person. I have made him in 27 and 37, but it still was an exercise of authority believed to be binding through the very speaking of the words. This is why Isaac could not take it back, even though it became clear that he had been tricked. Now, once again, it's important that we understand the reason for Esau being upset is because he thought that it was only in words, but it was not in words. This was a legal binding agreement or a prophetic word spoken over, or even if it wasn't prophetic, even his utterance over this situation was binding. He could not take it back. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is very important for us to understand. Why is this important for us to understand? Because once again, Joseph is looking and saying, hey, my oldest son fits the criteria. He's the one that needs to be in charge of this, not the baby boy. But Yahuwah had other plans.
Right.
And so this is important for us to understand. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
I'm learning. Just because it doesn't agree with you and you don't like it, doesn't mean it's not right.
That's right.
Because it's not up to us. It is up to us to say us. He didn't ask you to critique what he's doing. He didn't even ask us for our opinion. If you will hop him, you're just going to follow it.
That's right.
When it's him. Now, you ain't just going to follow anything. Make sure it's him. When you're doing that Thelma and follow me.
Yes.
Y'all know who them crazy people were.
Yes.
Yeah. Just stupid. But anyway. All right. Now, verse 48 and chapter 48, verse 22. I also want to look at this and I want to deal with this too. A ridge of land I took from the Amorites with my sword and bow. Now, the reason why I deal with this is because many times when you hear things of this caliber and you see this, many times people have a problem with identifying what is being talked about and what land actually is being given. And so this is where we want to bring clarity. This verse provides two difficulties. How do we handle the Ibram word skam, ridge of land? Margin. In the NIV, it says ridge of land or margin, portion. 70 and in the NRSV margin, Shishim. And this is in the, I can't think of it, but it'll come to me. And the word one that follows it. And the, it'll come, give me a minute. And the word one that follows it. And two, how can we explain this claim conquest historically? It's just given the places where this can be found. In terms of translation, and this is talking about the terms of translations, in the NIV and the NRSV and in the NIV again. And so here we have, in terms of translation, I am inclined to follow this person, Dehoop, and I give Shishim to you, O one above your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and my bow. Historically, this refers to the conquest of Shishim, or should we call it the slaughter of the Shishimites? So this is kind of showing us truly when he gives them, or he legally gives them this land and says that he does it. Now let's follow what it says. By Simeon and Lewi, Yaakov did not approve of this act and was not proud of it, but it was irreversible and undeniable. The land was therefore his to give, since it was taken in his name by his clan. This justifies Yaakov's use of the first person, I took. So it would be just like in day and time, if you go and take something and because you take it, but you are a part of the clan and you belong under our name, then by right, we have a right to say, well, it's ours. So whoever we desire to give it to, we can do so. Right. Does that make sense? Yes. This is why it is important for us as a people to be connected. Don't just be a drifter. Are y'all following me? Yes. Don't just be a person that just drifts through and drifts out. Come by every now and then and don't come by anymore. It's important that you connect and hook up, because you have to understand, when you connect, you become a part of that clan. And whatever that clan has becomes a part of what becomes a part of yours, or becomes yours. Are you following me? Yes, yes. With an understanding of certain principles and certain boundaries in place. Are you following? Yes. Very important for us to understand. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, once again, if you come under fire and you come under attack, who are you going to turn to? Please don't say to to us as a nation, because you got a lot of people be like, okay, but we don't know you. You have to have an alliance somewhere. You have to. Let me show you case in point. It's important that we understand that we don't do like everybody else. As a people, we're looking for people to be dedicated. We're looking for people to connect. Because if you want me to come and you want us to come 100% and bring the ruckus, then you got to know that you got to be a part of this. Are you following me? Because people want people to come and they want them to bring all the support, but you got to understand, you got to be a part of something. You can work on a job, but until you are invested in that job or vested 100% and you are an employee there, you don't get the benefits. You don't get offered the benefits package. But when you become fully vested and become a member or become an employee, guess what? Everything that's theirs, if they on the up and up, they have to offer it to you. Whereas whether it is the 401k plan, whether it is medical insurance, dental insurance, whatever it is, they have to offer it to you. Are you following me? Why? Because you have become what? A member. So when he said a part of my clan, you have to understand, he was saying, look, this is what they did. I'm not happy about what they did, but it is what it is. And so because it belongs to me, then I'm going to give it to you. Are y'all following me? Yes. Now you would think that it would go to the ones who committed the act. The reason it didn't go there is because he never did what? He never sanctioned it. He never told them, go take this and do that. So that's why it was in his hands and it belonged to him. Because they executed judgment when it was not given to them to do. Are y'all following me? And I'm going to show y'all something too. Now you have to understand, we as a people always come under attack and come under fire. Why? Because we know we are the set apart people. We know we are the chosen people.
So,
Now, the sad thing about it is that everybody that is melanated does not believe and does not receive, is not a concept, but it is a truth, does not receive that truth. So if you're expecting to be in a situation where you're around a whole lot of melanated people and you think they're going to come and help you, that's not always the case. We were in a situation yesterday and our truck was in the road and we had to go and get some gas. Now, me and my third oldest son and my daughter, we went. And my ish was in the road. Now, up the road, it was 4 healthy, melanated brothers. Negroes, exactly. That's what you call black folk. Up the road. Didn't offer to push him out the road. Didn't offer to get him secure. But sat up there on their porches and talked as if nothing was happening. Right. And in my mind, y'all, really, I wanted to ride by and say, thank you very much. Now, y'all know he out there on the street with this truck. You mean tell me you couldn't bring yourself off of that porch and help him push it out the street? This is why, once again, you can't expect chocolate folk to come and help you.
that's right.
Because all chocolate folk don't believe the same way. But if it would have been them in the road, they'd be looking at you all up and down. Oh, so you ain't going to give a brother no help. You ain't going to help get me out the road. Once again, we have to be careful. And this is why you need to know who's with you.
That's right.
You can't be out there by yourself. This is especially not the time for that. And so it ended up. And so I said, okay, let me do what I got to do and hurry up and get back so we can go and finish doing what we have to do for this yam. Are you following me?
Yes.
So you can't expect help from a people just because of the color of their skin or the melanin in their skin. Because you'll be disappointed. But let me tell you this. Let it be a European person in the road. You that them same ones breaking their butt trying to get out there and push them out the road. And Europeans, they going to help themselves. Mm-hmm. A situation came about years ago. And I refer to this situation because every time I think about it, it bothers me, but it angers me more. There was a brother and sister in a park. Why were they in a park with all these European people? I have no clue. But see, that's where our people get to this mentality. Oh, you know, we can jail with them and we can jive with them. We won't have no problems, you know, because they ain't gonna bother us. And they sat there and they started congregating around them. And as they were talking, you know, and just talking, they started gathering around them. Me personally, I would have felt threatened. My question, why y'all gathering around me? Get from behind me. No, don't come up behind me and don't walk up on me like that. Because see, now I don't know what your intentions are. But because they knew they had let their guard down. Now they started brawling among each other. Now I'm going to show you how people do stuff. They started brawling among each other. And the brother stepped in just to try to calm the situation down. The ones that were fighting each other stopped fighting each other and started fighting him. They stabbed him 14 or 22 times, stabbed his sister, punctured his lung. When I tell you, they worked them over. And they showed the footage of them. They couldn't cover the stab wounds. But y'all, it looked like something in a movie. And the people came on and said, y'all, now let me tell you something. It had happened a year ago. I'm just going backwards saying when it happened some years ago. They said, well, this happened a year ago and we need to get media attention. I thought about it. And my response was, please don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean it to be negative or derogative. But if they're still in the hospital after this happened a year ago and they have not gotten media attention, what makes you think they're going to get it now? If they did not put this up on the media when it happened, what makes you think a year later they're going to do it? I say, y'all, please don't take this the wrong way. But if y'all don't stop trying to get media involved and really deal with the issue, you're just going to be going in circles. I said, number one, they shouldn't have never been there. I'm not saying you can't go places, But I'm not going to put myself in no situation where I have to kill a couple of folk.
That's right.
Because you ain't cutting me all up in my face, and you ain't poking me like I'm some roast to be put on a skew. There are some things that we have to be conscious of. And they felt like they could do, and no charges were brought. You know why? Because the mentality was we had to stand our ground. Y'all were fighting. I'd have been like, I don't care what you do with each other. We about to bounce. First and foremost, you wouldn't have been coming around me like that, because I'd have looked behind me and be like, no. Why y'all getting me? That was a setup. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they did that intentionally so that they could bring harm to them. And they almost killed them people. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So I'm saying this. We have to be careful. We do. We live in a society that is not friendly to us. And we should never expect it to be friendly. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's the truth. And so we have to be careful how we guard ourselves and how we carry ourselves. Because if you don't look out for you and you don't have somebody there that you can say, hey, I'm in a situation and I need some help, you're in trouble. Because even when we call on each other, if we not like that, we won't even show up for each other. It's the truth. It's a hurtful thing, but it is the truth. So somebody said, well, what? I got to be a part of a ministry, a part of this? I would say yes. Because if you want benefits come with being a part. Are you following me? It works both ways. It's important for that. Are you following me?
Yes.
We get memberships at different places. You know, people have Amazon Prime, which I mean, everybody do what they do. Me personally, I can wait them few days because paying that kind of money, I can use that for something else. Call me thrifty nifty. I'm sorry. Are you hearing me? You call me stingy if you want to, but I could take that extra money and purchase reading material. I could take that and buy material for my seats. Are you following me?
Yes.
But the thing of it is, each person does what they are capable of doing. But what I'm saying is the importance of coming together and being a clan. Exactly. Buying more guns. Empowering ourselves. Learning different things. And doing the things that help us to protect ourselves. So the thing of it is, once again, very important for us to understand. No matter what we deal with, it is important that we come together. Because, you know, you want somebody to say, hey, you know, I'm going through this. Okay, we're coming. Give us about 5 days, but we'll be there. Give us about 20 hours. We'll be there. We're coming strong. We may not be large in numbers, but let me tell you something. 4 or 5 is more than one.
That's right.
That's better than one person. And so it's important that we understand these things. And this helps build camaraderie, and it helps to build us as a people. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's very important that we understand these things. So he was able to give that because they were all a part of the same clan. But once again, he did not want that to be transferred to his son. But nevertheless, that was the will of Abba Yahuwah. And whatever his will is, that is it. No, it doesn't matter what we like, what we don't like. It doesn't matter if we understand it. The bottom line is that if he does it, then we know it's for a reason and we must follow it. And it is so.
It is so.
All right. Let's start at chapter 41, please. Verse 1. Let's read. We can read 9 verses.
49.
Chapter 49, starting at verse 1.
And Yaakov called his sons and said, gather together that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last day. Gather together and hear, you sons of Yaakov, and listen to Yashral, your Abba. Reuben, you are my Bechor, my might and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as my yin, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father, to your Abba's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Shimon and Luai are out. Weapons of violence are their merchandise. Let not my soul enter their council. Let not my esteem be united to their assembly. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hamstrung an ox. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Yaakov and scatter them in Yashua. Yahudah, you are he whom your ox shall praise. Your hands shall be on the neck of your enemy. Your Abba's children shall bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub from the prey. My son, you have gone up. He bows down, he lies down as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him? And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Now, let's look at this. And Yaakov calls his sons and said, gather together that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last Yamim. He tells them, gather together and hear, you sons of Yaakov, and listen to Yasharal, your Abba. Now you look at the vacillation in the names and so forth, because remember, before Abba Yahuwah changed his name, he had sons already. Are you following me? He already had his sons. And so here we see he vacillates between Yaakov and Yasharal. That's what you were. Now this is what you are, or what you have become, or what you will become. What will happen to you in the Yamim to come? Now this is from the Zondervan. I'll read it from the Zondervan, and then I'm going to read it from the scrolls. As was typical of patriarchal pronouncements, Yaakov makes statements concerning the future destiny of his sons. These are not prophecy, for they are not given in the name of Abba Yahuwah or of the deity. They forecast the future, like a weather forecast or an economic forecaster. Yaakov identifies expectations derived from observed indicators that are considered reliable and thus can be interpreted with a high level of probability. Words had power in the ancient world, and the very speaking of them, especially by someone in authority, was taken seriously. So he's showing them the things that they had done were wrong. The things that they had done were wrong, and they were going to pay for that. And then you have to understand, he was able to see the things they had even done after that period of time. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, y'all know after that, what happens? The situation happens with Joseph. But Joseph wasn't dead, but they wanted to kill him. But what did they do? They cut up his clothes, covered it in blood, and lied. All those years, they sat there and lied, each one of them. And nobody revealed the truth. They let their father suffer for 17 years. 17 plus years. Yeah, because he was 17 by the time they got back, he was 40. So that was 17 plus years that their daddy suffered because of a lie. And they walked past him daily and never opened their mouths. And they basically endured his grief all that time and never said anything. You have to understand, that's a cold-hearted person. Even though they didn't know whether or not he was dead, but still they knew when they left when he left their presence, he was what? Alive.
That's right.
You know the saying, and it's even in the writings, your sins will find you out.
Yes.
And they did that, and look at what it cost them. As he goes down to giving them the discourse, and he says unto them, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my mighty, and the first fruits of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as water have not thou the excellency, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed. Then defilest thou it, he went up to my couch. So you start looking. He said, you were my firstborn, you were my strength, and look at what you did. But once again, not justifying it. Please understand what I'm saying. I don't justify sin in no form or fashion. But you have to understand, what is it that could have caused him to be pushed to that level to where he would want to go in to his Abba's bed? Are you hearing me? To his bed. and sleep with his wife. There are many things people do. I've learned this. It may be a fact, but get the truth behind why it was done.
Right.
We only sometimes deal with facts and not the truth behind those facts. It may be a fact that a person is angry, but why are they angry? Get to the truth, the root of the matter, why they are angry. A person could be a person that's hurting and could be one you say, always, why does they always feel like they're in a mully grub? You know, why is it that they're always sad and they always like their head is hung down? Well, you have to find out. That may be a fact that they walk around like that, but what is the truth? What is the root to them being like this?
Right.
Let's find out before we start saying, you know, this, that, and the third. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. Now, let's look at that. The excellency renders excel. Thou shouldest have had excel of dignity and power over thy brothers. That is, the priesthood and kingship have been thine. But because he was unstable like water, thou didst hearken to vent thy temper, even as water speeds in its flow. Because you know, water, once it gets to moving, it gets to moving. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And one thing about water and fire, you can't tame them.
Nope.
Those are two elements that cannot be tamed. That's why when they tell you with candles, a small little thing, a little tea-light candle can burn down a community.
That's right.
Because if that fire gets out of control, nobody can control it. You can't. Fire and water, two elements that can't be controlled.
That's right.
Then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch, renders. Then defilest thou that which was wont to ascend my couch. The Shekinah gives an alternative to Shekinah versus my esteem. So he wanted to basically defame him and take his place as leader. That's why he wanted to do that. In other words, he wanted to set his daddy down and he take the reign by going in and doing what he did. Now, if you notice, they really don't allude to what his part was and if he was sorrowful afterwards. They really don't allude to that, but they do let you know that he did this. There were some renderings that said he did it because he wanted to once again take the authority and be the ruler, and this could possibly be after during the time or after the time when Joseph is appointed to be the power of attorney, power of attorney of all of Yaakov's affairs. But the bottom line is that he did this, and I also believe that a part of the reason is because he felt the rejection of his Ima, and that if he could have removed her, then he believed that maybe his Ima would have had a place in Yaakov's heart. And that's just a theory. One of the things that's important to even understand with that, two wrongs will never make a right. Just like two negatives will never make a positive. As long as there are two negatives, nothing positive will ever come out of that. And the only way a negative and a positive can be right is that the positive has to be in the front and the negative has to be in the back. Are you following me? Yes. Whenever there's a negative and you have a positive, positive can never take from a negative because there's nothing to take from. It just continues to add up what? Negative. That's mathematical setup. Whenever there's a negative first and a positive follows, even whether you're doing subtraction or addition, it's going to continue to make it negative. And eventually that positive keeps feeding into that negative. It's going to become what? Negative two. The only way it is reversed is that you have a positive first and a negative, because a negative can draw from what is there. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Only reason why it doesn't is that it depletes it. That's important to understand, is that if it depletes it. So the thing of it is, once again, is understanding that two wrongs will never make a right. and what he did was wrong, and it cost him. It cost him in the long run. Are y'all following?
Yes.
It cost him dearly. Now, goes on to say, brethren, harboring the same thoughts, both in the same case, Shechem and Joseph. For when scripture states, they said one to another, literally, a man to his brother, let us slay him. And that's in 38 and 19. It can only refer to Simeon and Levi. Reuben and Yehuda were opposed to it. The sons of the handmaids were friendly towards him. 27 and 2. Whilst Issachar and Zebulun would not have spoken before their elders. Hence, only Simeon and Levi are left. Yaakov may have been pleading in their esteem that they acted so cruelly because their brotherly feelings had been outraged by what had happened to Dinah. But their sin was unforgivable in that it was violence. It was violent, and the way they did it. I mean, everybody that has read the story knows they used circumcision, and they were grown men, so it takes longer. And it said that when a man is circumcised, he doesn't start feeling the pain till about the second or third day. So by the second or third day, when they were at their weakest point and they couldn't lift a sword, they couldn't even lift their head. They went in and they slaughtered them. They didn't give them a fair chance to defend themselves. And this was an act of cruelty. And it was just an act that went against the very nature of Abba Yahuwah and the nature of their Abba to go and do such a heinous crime. And so this is why when he is saying to them, he's bringing these things out. Not only that, I said it on last Layla, you know your children. If you are a parent and you don't, that means you have not spent any time with them. But when you spend quality time with them, you come to understand their makeup. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
You come to understand their nature. And this is where you're able to do as a seamstress does, cut off the extra material. You leave room for growth because you may gain weight and then you may lose it. Sure. But you leave that room for growth. So if you need to expand, you have just a little bit of material you can expand, just enough to if you have to take it out, but enough to where it still is tailored to fit you. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. And so, but you know them. And many times people know, but they are afraid sometimes to deal with the issues because they don't want one or two things: to lose their child or feel like they are becoming distant from them because they have them so much. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. Now, kinship. Weapons, that is, the instruments of violence are their weapons. Alternatively, their inhabitants in the land, their inhabitants in the land of their habitation, they acted with violence. Weapons of violence are the means of their livelihood. Yaakov explains that the dignities which Reuben had forfeited should have been theirs as next in seniority, but they too were unworthy of them because of their violence. So he's just kind of going down the chain of command. He's saying you were the oldest when you didn't do right. And it sounds just like we would do. Okay, you the oldest. Why didn't you step in? Okay, well, if he didn't do it, then why didn't you do it? And by the time you finish, you start thinking, well, I ain't going to even look to the baby because he's the baby. Are you following me?
Yes.
But sometimes it's the youngest ones that kind of have that more sense of, hey, this is wrong. We can't do this. We're going to get a whooping for this. We're going to get in trouble for this. Are you following me?
Yes.
And so we can see that. He said in verse 6, let my soul not come. O my soul, come not. The allusions are to Zimri and Korah. Men of the tribe of Simeon assembled to ask Moshe, may Zimri, our prince, marry the Midianite woman? Should you say that he may not, who permitted you to marry a Midianite woman? Korah also assembled the congregation against Moshe and Haran. Yaakov prayed that on both these occasions his name should not be coupled with theirs, and neither instance in the genealogy traced back to Yaakov. Yaakov protested that he had not been privy to their acts of violence. They slew men. Literally, a man. They slew the inhabitants of Shechem as though they were one man. Man is used generically and means men. So you have to understand the damage they did. They said the way they killed them was just like they would kill one man. You have to understand when a person is angry or enraged, you can't do nothing with a person that's enraged. Are you following me?
Yes.
When a person is enraged, there are things that you wouldn't believe they would do, but they'll do. Because rage is one of those types of things that people get so enraged, they just go into fits. You know, people have fit of rage, and you start thinking, well, what did it look like? Just look at how people go and shoot up places.
Yeah.
Look at how people drive into places. Look at how people be trying to run people over. I've heard people when we were in Christianity and they said they were Christians trying to run their wives over, trying to run their husbands over, put that car in reverse or put it in drive, and they be trying to run them down. Yes, because they find out something, you know, and they're like, I can't handle this. I can't deal with this. And boy, you hear about them running, trying to kill them, and people hollering and screaming, the church members hollering and screaming, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Stabbing their husband in the head with a screwdriver and fighting folk and all that stuff. Because when rage comes in, it basically takes control of a person's mental stability and takes a hold of their reasoning. Now they just start doing things. And then when they come out of that rage, of that fit of rage, now they're like, did I really do that? I am so sorry. I just got beyond myself. That's the same thing they did. They were so enraged and full of anger that they didn't consider what they were doing. Are you following me?
Yes.
And he's addressing these things. He's addressing them. I'm sure he had addressed them before, but he's addressing them again. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And listen what it says. They hanged or they hawked oxen. Literally an ox. They sought to do the same thing to Joseph, who is likened to an ox. Devarim chapter 33 and verse 17. In their passion, they slew men, the citizens of Shechem, and in their self-will, when their anger had subsided, they continued with the destruction of the cattle. They tore down a wall, the wall of Shechem. Now you have to understand the destruction of the cattle. What did they do? They went in and basically cut the male sacks off of the animals, meaning that they castrated the animals to where they could not produce. So they went in afterwards. It became folly. Well, we didn't destroy everybody. Let's just go tear it up. Let's tear the store up. You hear me? So they go in and they tear down the wall. But not only do they tear down the wall, they go in and they make sure they destroy the animals, which had nothing to do with it. And literally, they went in there and killed all those men, which they had nothing to do with it. The reason why they said they needed to be punished is because they said, well, they knew what was going on and never said anything about it. But then you have to look. These people live here. These people could have been in fear. But then at the same time, they could have been loyal to where they lived and be like, well, you know, she ain't one of us, so whatever you do, that's you. Just don't do our daughters like that. You know, so the thing of it is that regardless of whether or not they was for it or against it, they didn't have to kill all the men in the city. They killed even young boys in the city. Are you following me?
Yes.
They just went on a killing spree. Now, cursed be their anger. He did not curse them, but their anger. May they fail in their anger to take vengeance and do evil. May their anger grow less, as Baruch often implies increase. So curse denotes the reverse. So he didn't want them to, after he, close his eyes, go and do something worse.
Right.
You know, if people were warned and told many times by sometime the mishpachol, I believe that sometime many things could have been thwarted.
True. Many
things, really, I do. Because remember, he's speaking over their lives before he closes his eyes. as a reminder to them. Don't do this. Now, I'm sure by the time they got to, or during the time that they thought Joseph was deceased, that they didn't show their anger. But the thing of it is because it didn't show between that time, didn't mean that after he died that it wouldn't pop up again, or a situation wouldn't come up and they would be challenged to do that same thing again. So he had to put that in check. And this is why when you harm somebody, you put those things in check. So you tell them, say, look, you may not have done this in years, eons may have passed, but there, if you don't deal with it, it's going to deal with you.
That's right.
And this is why it is being expressed. Many times we get tired. Many times we feel like, man, I don't want to hear this no more. I'm tired of this. But you have to understand, if you keep walking in the same circle and you keep committing the same things, that means somebody has not told you, or you're not listening. I heard people say, I heard my ish say, and I heard another young lady say that insanity is doing the same thing over and think you're going to get results. Right. You can't get results if you keep doing the same thing over. That's right. And he was warning them, just like any Abba or any Ima would do. Warn. You can't keep doing that, or things won't come up. You may not want to talk to me no more. You may get angry with me, but things are not going to change if you keep doing them the same way. Right. You know, you go to that machine and that machine taking your money. You keep putting it in this stupid machine. No, you stupid. Because you keep putting your money in that same machine and you know it ain't going to give you anything. Or you hear me? Somebody else will go in and dig it out. So he's cursing their anger. Now, I'm sure at this time, they're probably crying and there are probably tears flowing, because I'm sure there was some type of remorse. Are you following me?
Yes.
I will divide them in Yaakov. Yasharo, I will divide, that is, separate them one from the other. In that Luai shall not be counted in the number of tribes. Luai had 48 cities scattered among the other tribes, while Simeon had no territory of his own, but took part of Yehuda's, and in that portion his cities were not close together but scattered. Their anger will perforce be lessened, that is, kept under control through their lowly state and hard life, caused by the fact that they will be divided and scattered. So you can see where the scattering had already began to take place and how things were not together. It's almost like breaking up a friendship, even though they were brothers, still pulling them apart, and they will be in different sections. You know, and it is so. Like he was drinking all night. All right, now I want to read this. I want to finish these, then I want to read these. I tried to get these footnotes in here because I want to show you the meat, the expansion of that verse. So we just don't take that verse sometimes at face value, but we can see into that. It's just like when you're eating chicken or eating any type of meat that has bone. You want to get all of the meat off of it, because that's the substance. Are y'all following me? Yes. Very important. Now, Yehuda, these shall thy brethren praise. On hearing how Yaakov spoke to his brother Yehuda, drew back, fearing that he too would be upbraided for the incident of Tamar. Whereupon Yaakov recalled him with kindly words. Even as thy name denotes praise, so shall thy brethren praise thee. To thee shall thy brethren ascribe majesty. They shall be on the neck of thine enemies. This happened in the Yamim of Dawood. 2 Shamuel 22 and 41, where turn their backs and literally submit their necks, they shall flee from before thee. Thy Abba's sons, because they were from many wives, he said, Abba's sons, whereas Isaac, having only one wife, said to Yaakov, let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. He said, many wives, thy father's sons. Okay. A lion's whelp. This was a prophecy regarding Dawood, who at first was a whelp, that is, a leader of Yahshua under Shaul, and then became a lion, that is, a king. The whelp is swifter than the adult lion, and therefore he likened Yehuda to it. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. Thou hast cleared thyself from my suspicion that thou didst destroy Joseph, when I said an evil beast have devoured him. And 30 and 72 and verse 33. Beast hinting at Yehuda, who is described as a lion. Thou, my son Joseph, art gone up from the prey. That is, thou didst not become Yehuda's prey. In spite of his hatred of thee, give the sentence its plain, is given a sentence the plain meaning. As a lion's whelp, he takes his prey with none to hinder or affright him. He stooped down. He enjoyed life without any to molest him. This alludes to the Yamim of Solomon's reign. Malachim Aleph, verse 5. As a lioness, who shall rouse him up? In the future, he shall couch as a lioness in his homeland, none daring to frighten him away. In the Torah portions. Now I want to read it from the Zondervan. I only have 1, 2, 3 to read because I like to compare and like to share with you the comparison. I will scatter them in Yaakov and disperse them in land. Verse 49 and 7. The tribes of Simeon and Levi are to be dispersed, not the individuals, of course, deprived of clearly identified land as a consequence of their violence in Shechem, Bereshit and 34. This represents virtual disinheritance. Simeon is eventually assigned villages scattered in Yehuda's territory. Yehush, the son of Nun, chapter 19, verses 1 through 9. And Levi, though having no claim to land, serves its priestly function from the bases known as the Levitical cities, which were distributed among the tribal territories, the Midbar 35. So we see why they didn't have an inheritance. We see why that they would be constantly living like this. 49 and 8. Your Abba's sons will bow down to you. Westbrook identifies this as the legal transfer of clan leadership to Yehuda. Though Joseph has received the double portion of the inheritance, since Ephraim and Manasseh both inherited shares among Yaakov's sons, Bereshit 48, Yehuda will be the administrator of the undivided inheritance. So even though Joseph was the leader, so you're a lion. Lion imagery is common in the ancient. There are lioness cults in Mitzrayim, particularly associated with On, where Joseph's in-laws were from. More important, the lion is used in Mitzrayim as a symbol of the king. In Mesopotamia, the lion is most often associated with the goddess Ishtar. The god Nergal carries a lion scepter. And numerous other gods are described using lion metaphors. The lion as a royal metaphor, as well as an animal for the royal hunt, is more familiar in Mesopotamia. From the later Neo-Assyrian period, though it is not absent from the earlier periods. Now, once again, listen to what it said. Though it is not absent from the earlier periods. In these contexts, the image that the metaphor presents is one of fierceness, cruelty, and power. In contrast, the imagery with Yehuda tends to invoke the image of quiet power at rest, but is not to be trifled with, rather than representing an immediate threat. Another point of interest is that the cub of lionesses are mentioned here along with the lion, but are from Syria. Palestine portrays only the male. Are the different renderings of these things. Are y'all following me? And we see how it is used to show how he uses the character nature of animals to depict. All right, now let's.
In chapter 49.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 10 reads, The scepter shall not depart from Yehuda, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be, binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Issachar is as strong as couching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was great, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Yasharal. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that bites the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. I have waited for your salvation, O Yahuwah. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Looking at these, at the sons of Yaakov, verse 10, we begin to see the scepter shall not depart from Yehuda. Widely varying interpretations are given of this verse. Widely, in other words, there are so many interpretations of this verse that you have to really have the spirit of discernment to know in which one they just kind of chose. So I'm going to read the ones that are before me and show you what has been given. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. The scepter shall not depart from Dawood onwards, an allusion to the elixirs in Babylon, appointed by the civil authorities who ruled the people with the Shabbat, same word as scepter. This explanation seeks to reconcile the prophecy of Yaakov with the historical fact that the kings of Yehuda ceased after the destruction of the temple, nor the rulers staff from between his feet. That is, their disciples who sit at the feet of their masters, the Neshim, the religious heads, who, after the destruction of the second temple, combined civil and religious authority in the land of Yasharal. Until Shiloh come, King Mashiach, to whom belongeth Shiloh, sovereignty, obedience. The word is to be rendered gathering. All the people will assemble to pay him homage. The scepter shall not depart. The privilege of ruling over all of Yasharal shall be his only until they come to Shiloh, when it will cease. This is an allusion to Rehoboam, against whom the 10 tribes revolted at Shechem. Aleph Melachim 12:1, which is near Shiloh. Obedience renders as gathering, but makes it refer to Suleiman, who ruled over the people, who ruled over many people. Melachim Aleph 5:4. The scepter of greatness shall not depart from Yehuda until Dawood comes. Thus, in the wilderness, the standard of Yehuda traveled at the head of the people, and after Yahush, the son of Nun's death, Yehuda was ordered to make the first attack. Shoftim 1, chapter 1, verse 2. Until Shiloh come. This may mean that until the son of Shiloh sets. Come also means to set of the sun. That is, Yehuda's preeminence will continue throughout the period of the tabernacle of Shiloh. And when that is destroyed, it will be superseded by the royal line of Dawood. Or Shiloh can be connected with the root meaning son, descendant. Until his descendant, Dawood, comes, when the kingship will be his. The words nor, the ruler's staff, are rendered, nor a scribe, one who inscribes the law, that is, interprets of scepter as greatness, and maintains that the word always denotes kingship. He also holds that it does not mean that kingship would never depart, but that as long as there is kingship in Yehuda,
the king will be of that tribe, and never will a member of another tribe rule over it until a descendant of Yehuda comes. The Mashiach, he connects Yikath, obedience, with the root meaning to weaken, and renders, and his Shiloh, that is the Mashiach, shall be the weakening of peoples, that is, he will subjugate them. So those are the different interpretations. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's different interpretations and different theories of what that means. I'm inclined to believe in the first one where it says that a scepter shall not depart from out of his feet or from his feet. That meaning, as we have come to understand, that when Yaakov got ready to Baruch his sons, and they were at the knees or in between the feet of Joseph, meaning that they were his responsibility, and that he was the one to protect them, take care of them, and also to teach them. That now when Joseph begins to pray for them, not Joseph, I'm sorry, when Yaakov begins to pray for them, he now brings them in that same position to learn from them. Because I'm sure even in that span of time, not only did he prophesy over their lives, but he also gave them valuable information that taught them. So it's important that we understand that as long as we stay in that position to be taught, we can learn.
Right.
But the moment you leave from that position, you will never learn. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, once again, able to be able to grow. So he said, to bring forth truth shall not depart. Are you following me?
Yes.
I like how it says that it didn't mean that there would not be a king or that there would not be someone there. It just means that the kingship would never depart as long as kingship in Yehuda, the king will be of that tribe. So they won't leave or depart. Are you following me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand. Who sits at the feet inscribes, and who sits at the feet the law, the one who inscribes the law, or who inscribes the instructions of Abba Yahuwah, who sits at the feet of the ruler. The scepter is greatness and maintains that the word also denotes kingship. So it's important for us to understand that we cannot leave from the feet of understanding and learning. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important that we understand that. And when you look at Yehuda, which is the lineage in which Yahush came through, it's important that we understand that too. Very important. And that those that are of the tribe of Yehuda understand their position. Now, this is where it becomes very challenging, because many people that say that they are of Yehuda don't carry the characteristics. They don't have the nature. The nature of being a part of the tribe or being a part of the clan of Yehuda is that you are willing to be a one that is to teach. You're willing to be one that is to govern the affairs of Abba Yahuwah. Not be antagonistic, not be boastful. And I'm not saying everybody, don't get me wrong, because I'm not saying everybody. Are you following me? Yes. But you ought to be the example of for all the rest of the tribes. Right. The reason why we are still so all over the place is because we don't have people in place that show us and that give us that nature and give us the description, or show us the description in physical form of what Yehuda is supposed to be. Right. This is a problem, because the ones that's claiming to be Yehuda are the ones that's doing something else. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Not everybody, but some of them. They have that mentality. We need to be on the street corner, and we ain't going into the communities where our people are, but we're going to go where we see everybody else but our people. We're going to preach on the corner, and we're going to show them instead of going into the neighborhoods. That's why he said, go ye into the hedges, highways, and byways and compel. Hedges, highways, and byways were the rough parts. That's the hood. Show me any. I have yet to see anybody go in the hood. I have yet to see them put out their boards and stand in front of some projects, and you will have a crowd. You will. But you better be ready. I have yet to see them do that. But they'll go everywhere else. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Yehuda is supposed to be the example of how all the rest of the tribes are supposed to govern themselves. Many times I think people get named, and because that's the lineage Yahush came through. That you getting all misty-eyed and you thinking that, this is, just something of a name game. No, you got to be about the Abba business.
Right.
And that's living the life and being an example to the rest of the tribes. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. And not walk around thinking, hey, we got it because we are the tribe of Yehuda. No, you have to understand, you have to live the life too, and you have to be an example. Hiding his foe, verse 11. It explains binding his foe, R explains as AJ similarly, who comments that so fruitful will Yehuda's land be that a single vine will need a fold to carry its grapes. It is also understood the verse in this sense, but explains so abundant will the vintage be that he will bind his fold to the vine, careless whether it eat the grapes. And the other interpreter likes the Targum, which refers to the verse to the Mashiach and sees it in the sign by which he will be recognized, such as his riding on an ass. Zechariah 9, 11 and 9, chapter 11 and verse 9. So it's important that we understand the different renderings.
That's right.
Of the each one, when they had that spoken over their lives, had a direct connection to the renewed covenant in some form or fashion.
Right.
Now, his eyes shall be red. After rendering, as AJ quotes the Targum, his mountains will be red with vineyards, of his vats will flow with wine. His fields will be white as corn, and with flocks of sheep. His eyes shall be redder than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Yaakov enumerated his sons in the order of birth, but he mentioned Zebulun before Issachar, although the former was younger because the latter's portion fell between Issachar and Dan. And for that reason, they are referred to in that order. Now, once again, very important for us to understand. Wash his garments in wine. This imagery suggests of Yehuda's descendants having the blue, purple, red clothing often associated with royal, though that coloring is usually achieved through the processing of murex snails, an expensive process because of the number of snails needed to produce the dye. And this is where you get when, if you look in the King James Version, and you begin to look at the blue, they will make the reference when you look at for the seats, and you have the blue thread. They say this is where that blue comes from. And then who was it? Lydia, who was a maker of purple, also dealt with the snail that they could get it from. And they said that stuff was so expensive for an ounce. It was something like $1,000 an ounce because it was so expensive. The dyeing industry has been reconstructed to some extent by archaeologists and with the help of ancient and classical literary sources. Fabrics as well as threads for color patterns were dyed through soaking them in a bath. For the color to last, the dye had to be fixed, usually through desired and expensive dyes or self-fixing. Purple from the woad plant and the red from insects. Once the fixing process was discovered early in the second millennium, many more plant products became usable. An Assyrian manual containing recipes for dyeing shows the complexity of the industry. The earliest written record concerning dyeing are from Nuzai in the middle second millennium. The earliest evidence of the use of the snail for purple dye comes from the 17th century BC Crete. That suggests that at the time of the patriarchs, that technology for dyeing is unknown, yet dyeing itself was known with color patterns. Prior to the discovery of Murex snails, purple might wine have been used for dyeing. Would red, purple have been associated with royalty? Royal women at the tomb of Ur from the end of the 3rd millennium wore red-colored clothing, but no evidence suggests that wine was used for dyeing, though its stains effects would have been well recognized since wine was filtered through linen cloth. So it's kind of showing you how they processed, how the dyeing process went by. So when you think about wine, rich wine, because of its properties, its protein, wine does stain. And the wine, when it's properly done, you can stain stuff.
Right.
And you can't get it out. That's why you see the commercials where they talk about it even gets the stain of wine out of your carpet and out of your clothes, because wine does stain. And so you have to understand that's a lot of wine to be used. But he's showing it's not going to come from any other thing. Now you have to understand also this concept or this theory is to show that he would be so wealthy that the coloring or the juice from the wine would also be able to stain his clothes, or he'd be able to wash his clothes in it and still not feel the effects of not having it. Are you following me?
Yes.
So this is important too for us to understand. Very important. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
All right. For ships, Zebulun engaged in commerce, trading overseas, and supported Issachar, who was thereby enabled to engage in study. This is the reason why Zebulun is mentioned before Issachar. For one cannot study Torah unless his material wants are supplied. Oh boy. I'm going to read that again. For one cannot study Torah unless his material or her material wants are supplied. Issachar's merit of studying would then belong to both. So they worked together to make sure that they had what was needed. Now you have to understand that we're seeing a part of them that before we didn't see.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
You see that they are not just angry brothers. We see that they are not just brothers that, watch this, that are just taking from Joseph, but they themselves have brains too.
Right.
They have things that they are doing. They have things that they are investing their time and life in. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So we're seeing that they were the 12 sons, but you have to understand, because he was a man that was about business, about that life, so were they. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
He was about it, about that life. So they were doing it. All right. Very important. Now, verse 14, a large bond or large boned ass, sturdy to bear the yoke of the study of the Torah, not a trader like Zebulun, but a farmer tilling the soil like a sturdy ass. Sheepfolds, city boundaries, like an ass toiling day and night that cannot take his rest in the fields, but has to lie down on the road between the boundaries of the cities to which it carries merchandise. The burdens, like an ass that takes its rest while its burdens are still upon it, overflow its flanks. Thus will Issachar carry the burdens of study, worldly occupation, and communal administration. That don't sound like the people they say that is Issachar now, does it? That sound like our people. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We study the study of Torah. We study the Torah, right? No, the original, the melanated. But you follow me? That sound like our people. Now, y'all have to understand something. When we were in Christianity, people would go to the lengths of leaving their families to enroll in school in other places to learn. And in the process, many would learn and go to school. You see the different things up on Facebook, which me personally, I don't believe they should have posted this young lady up there. She was nursing her baby, and also she was studying. She had all her books around her and her computer up. and she was out, and the baby was nursing, and they posted it. And some people were very facetious and nasty, but this girl was going in hard, and she was doing all of it at one time. Me personally, you don't uncover a person that's doing that.
Right.
But I understand they were trying to show that even women go in hard in studying like this. Are you following me?
Yes.
And she had a baby. And so, you kind of have to be careful and use discretion when you are doing that. But that sounds like us. Y'all know we'll work. We'll stay up 2 and 3 days reading. And then have to go to sleep because we got what? Poke eye. You can get poke eye from reading too. Especially when you don't have the best kind of life. We'll work and we'll read and we'll work and we'll read. We'll be trying to read and cook. We'll be trying to read and clean. We'll be trying to read. And if we can't read it, we'll be listening to it. And then we'll take a rest. I'm gonna lay down and I'm gonna rest a little bit. Where my book at? You roll over. What you doing? I'm gonna read a little bit. Turn that light off and go to sleep. Are you following me? Why? Because it's in us. That sounds like our people. That sounds like us going in hard. That does not sound like Mexicans. It doesn't. Y'all following me?
Yes.
And I'm serious. Now, maybe the ones that they have out of the media, the melanated, the real Mexicans, which are not Mexicans. Are you following me?
Yes.
The real melanated ones, but not the ones that's trying to run up here and say that they are it. No. But it's important that we understand the way they went about things.
That's right.
The way they went about things. Now, worldly occupation and communal administration. He saw his portion, a great land and fruitful, to bear the yoke of the Torah, and became to all his brother Yashraelites a servant under taskwork, teaching them the rulings of the Torah and the regulations concerning the intercalary year, based on rabbinical interpretation. Now, this is what they're saying. He saw great, better than to see trade from afar, to bear the burden of kings, taskwork, paying them a tithe of his crops and tax. Somewhat similar, making the portion that Issachar was not a strong tribe for war and preferred to pay levies to the king in money rather than furnish soldiers. So you have to understand, everybody is not built for war.
Right.
And that's one of the things we as a people have to understand. Everybody is not built for war. Everybody is not built for kicking butt and taking names. Some people can beat your behind with a piece of paper and a pencil.
That's right.
Them the ones that'll pencil whip you to death. Because they use their brains. They are the ones that write out the execution plans. They are the ones that say, hey, you know what? This is what we could do. Y'all know we watched Attack on Titans. That's what the little guy was that was scary and wouldn't fight. What was his name? Armin. That's what he was. He was better at fighting with his brains than with his fists.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when we can lock people in and not try to make everybody a warrior, because everybody, you can't put a gun in their hand.
Right.
But if you put a pencil and a piece of paper in their hand and give them some time, they'll come back with it. They'll come back with it. They'll know what to do.
Right.
Great and pleasant, furnishing a livelihood without much difficulty. So he bowed, bear the yoke of became a servant under taskwork, working for and relieving them of their burdens. So it's showing us he was more interested in learning Torah and sharing that with others. Are you following me?
Yes.
And you have many of us. And one of the things you're trying to play basketball and you're actually a baseball player. When you're trying to play soccer and you're actually a football player.
Right. Yes.
Not saying that you cannot play both sports, but there are times that you will invest what you really have the most energy. Just like you have people that can play checkers and they can play chess, but their strong point is checkers.
Right.
Checkers is also a thinking game. Ever think that playing checkers is not a thinking game?
Right.
Because you have to be a thinker.
That's right.
When you play checkers. But in chess, you have more of imagery. You have the king, the queen, the rook. You have the bishop. You have the pawns. You have the knights. So you have more of a image of what you're playing with. Whereas checkers, you have the little round pieces. Are you following me?
Yes.
And so it's important that we understand these things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important that we understand these things, because a person that plays chess will not really play checkers, because it's not a strategy game. But a person that plays chess, they'll sit up there and they will play all day long.
Yes.
You got the ones that play fast, and you got the ones that play slow. You got the ones that's kind of in the middle, and they say, okay, you take time. And then you got those like me. I'm a thinker. I like to think, and I like to look at my moves. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And I was taught by my ish, and he plays well. I ain't gonna take it away from him, but I still hold the championship. I still hold hold it. Because once I win, I don't play for another 2 to 3 years. I hold on to that. So, but it's a thinking game. It's a game of strategy. Are you following me? And when you have people that do that, most of the time, those are people, not saying that they are not people of war, but most of the time, once again, their greatest ability to fight a battle is not on the battlefield, but behind those doors, making the calls and using strategy and strategizing and positioning people to put them in position. This is why you also have, when you're in the military, people that go in for tech. They go in to learn the technical aspect of the military and so forth. But they're not the ones you put out on the field, because if they're not ready and that's not what they do, they will get themselves killed and other people killed.
Right.
They will. So you have to understand those things. And one of the things, once again, as I was saying, is you got to know your position, know what he has anointed you to do. Now, you have some of those, not bragging like myself, I can get it out there and I can make it work out there on that field. And I believe I do a decent job in sitting here and conveying the Torah. So it's important that we understand that. Are you hearing me? Yes. You have people that have different places where they can work in. And then you have those that are committed to one. And then you have people that can be all over the place.
Right. Yes.
And it is so.
It is so.
Verse 16, Dan shall judge his people. He will avenge his people on the Philistines as one of the tribes of Yasharal. All Yasharal being united with him as one in this task, or as the outstanding one of the tribes. Dawood, the prophecy alludes to Samson, who was descended from Dan. This person strongly disagrees and insists that the allusion is to the tribe of Dan, which both in the wilderness and later in the Yamim of Yehush formed the reward of the camps. Bamidbar 10 and 25. And avenged attacks made on the stragglers. He hinted that Dan, though born of one of the handmaidens, would have his own standard, just as the tribes born from the wives, and would be a ruler over the other tribes descended from the handmaidens. So it's kind of just giving you a play when it says handmaidens. They're kind of showing you these were the sons that were of the handmaidens, and these are the sons of the wives that he married, because these are the ones basically that were given to him as ish, and then the other ones, his concubines or his maidens, their maidens, was given to him by the wives. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of things. And like I say, when you began to look at the strong points and also the weak points of the 12 sons, you began to understand, once again, we have some of these same traits in us. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
We have some of these same traits and characteristics and nature in us. Why? Because if you are descendant from one of these tribes, right, then you have the characteristics of the tribes.
Right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. Backward, even though the snake has not touched him, similarly, Samson encompassed the death of many Philistines without touching them by breaking the pillars of their temple. Samson was likened to a snake which strikes and then recoils into its hiding place. because he too struck alone without armies and then retired into hiding. And y'all know Samson, he is just, every time I think about him, it hurts my heart that he had to lose, he didn't lose his life, but that he ended up really finding out who Yahuwah was and who he was in his death.
Right.
All that time he lived carelessly, and all that time he took for granted what he had until that last time. And he said, just give me the strength this one time. Well, you have to understand, boy, that sent chills up my spine, because he understood there's no turning back. But if you give me this in my death, if you give me this, because you have to understand, sometimes we can spend so much time being foolish and being immature, not knowing who we are and what we possess, that it's at that last moment that you realize that this is what you have. Are you following me?
Yes.
Let that not be said of us. Let that not be said of us. Don't let it be said that you waited or you took for granted what he gave to you.
Right.
And now in your last minutes and in your last hour, you trying to do that what you could have done when you were alive. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. Very, very important. I wait for thy salvation, verse 18. O Yahuwah, he prophesied that the Philistines would put out Samson's eyes and that he would finally pray, O Yahuwah, my power, remember me. I pray thee and strengthen me. Shoftim 16 and 28. Samson was the last and the only one of the Shoftim to fall into the enemy's hands. Samuel, who followed him, is to be accounted among the prophets. When Yaakov foresaw that the salvation wrought by Samson would cease with his captor and death, he prayed, I waited for thy salvation, O Yahuwah, which will be for all time. I pray that Yahuwah's power and salvation will be with you and strengthen you in the task of fighting the nations. And you have to understand something. You sing these things and you are conveying them to your children because you want them to not miss what's taking place. You don't want them to forfeit. And you don't want them to go beyond that point without understanding what is to come after he closes his eyes.
Right.
And what is their responsibility as full-grown men and the responsibility to their children and to their wives. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. All right, let's read. Let's get through 49. Let's see if we can get to 50 and be ready to break. Let's finish reading. Because you read all the way 18, right?
19.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start at 20. While you're finding, I'm going to read this one. Gad. Troops' army shall be formed of Gad, who though taking, their share on the east of the Jordan, will cross into the west and fight with the other tribes for the Kadesh land. And these troops will return safely on their tracks or heels after the conquest. The armies of Gad will march in the van when they go out to conquer, and bring up the rear when they return from battle. After having conquered upon their heel, as meaning that they will be victorious in the end. It is pointed out that this Baruch was particularly appropriate for the tribe of Gad, which, having its land on the east of the Jordan, was much subject to attack by the Ammonites and Moabites. He suggests further that this may be an allusion to the war of the Ammonites against Jephthah. So he's just kind of showing, once again, the tribes and showing the different places of the tribes and the different things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Which is so important for us to understand. Because if not, we will believe what we would hear in Christianity. You just only heard about the 12 tribes, but we never really see the aspirations and the goals of their lives. And we see what he spoke over their lives, but then we also see the things that they were doing. Are y'all following?
Yes.
All right, very important. All right, let's finish reading verse 20 and let's read 9 verses, please.
Verse 19, please. Verse 20 reads.
To read 9 verses.
Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth great words. Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hand of the mighty Yahuwah of Yaakov. From thence is the shepherd the stone of Yashraal, even by Yahuwah of thy Abba, who shall help thee, and by Almighty, who shall Baruch thee with Baruch of Shamayim above, Baruch of the deep that lieth under, Baruch of the breast and of the womb. The Baruch of thy Abba have prevailed above the Baruch of my progenitors, unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Yashraal, and this is it that their Abba spake unto them, and Baruch them, every one of them according to his Baruch. He Baruch them. And so.
Go ahead, read 29, 30, all the way to 33.
And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my Abba in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought out of the field of Ephron the Hittite for possession of a burying place. There they are buried, Abraham and Sarah, his Isha. There they buried Isaac and Rivkah, his Isha. And there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave that is therein was from the children of Heth. And when Yaakov had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost, and was gathered unto his people.
And it is so. He did what he had to do and went to sleep. No struggle whatsoever. Verse 20, fat. His land was rich in olive grove. Debitum 33 and 24. A hind let loose, that is swift, an allusion to the plain of the Gennesaret, where the crops ripen swiftly before those in other parts of the land of Yasharal. Warriors, swift as hinds. Great words. This is as the Targum renders, words of praise and thanksgiving for his lot. The Midrash makes this verse an allusion to the battle against Sisera, when the men of Naphtali were swift to answer the call. Shoftim 6 and 6. Whilst goodly words alludes to the song of triumph sung by Deborah after the victory which they had helped to achieve. When they returned from battle, they hastened to bring the great tidings of victory. 22. Joseph is a gracious son, yea, a gracious son to the eye which beholds him. The daughters of Mitzrayim step on to the wall to gaze at him. Joseph is a fruitful vine over the eye that is so tall in stature that the eyes must look up towards him. So he was tall and great looking. Joseph is a fruitful bowl or branch, producing branches that run over the wall. So tall are they. As the fruitful vine casts a protecting shade, so did Yaakov and his sons live under Joseph's protection in Mitzrayim, run over the wall, and appear unexpectedly on the other side to people who did not even know of its existence. So did Joseph suddenly make himself known to his Abba and brothers when they thought that he no longer existed. Joseph is a son like a sapling planted by a fountain producing branches. These branches are an allusion to Ephraim and Manasseh. They are not explicitly mentioned because Yaakov wished to maintain the number of 12, the destined number of the tribes. So that's why when people come up saying it's a 13th tribe, we have to question that. Are you following? You can't read everything, because if that's the case, it would have been 14 tribes. Remember, even with Joseph taken out, it would have still been 13 tribes. But because they were not separated, he kept them hidden, so it would still be the 12 tribes. You know, what is that? Almost you could look at them as, I don't want to say as a place number, but you know, when you're doing math and you put that number there, but that number is to be there, that zero is supposed to be there as a placeholder. It has significance because it does what? Hold a place. And they held a place. And so they were of importance, but they were to be kept hidden. So we have to be careful with a lot of things that come up. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Very important. The archers, verse 23. His brothers, Potiphar and his Isha. They are so called because their tongues were sharp as arrows. It alludes to the chief butler who, when recalling him to Pharaoh, spoke slightingly of him. Also to Pharaoh's servant who protested against a former slave ruling over them. It is with the previous verses because his beauty was such that the daughters stepped on the wall to see him. Potiphar's wife desired him, and when her passion was thwarted, became his enemy. So you have to understand that man was gorgeous. Remind me of somebody I knew. Shoot. And quarreled with him. Verse 24. But his bow, that is strength, a bow firm, and the arms of his hand were gilded, an allusion to the ring given him by Pharaoh, by the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. And from thence he, Joseph, became the shepherd of the stone, the people of Yasharal. That they make shepherd refer to Joseph. The first part of the verse means that he triumphed over his adversaries. Verse 25, help thee that thou shalt fall no more. The Almighty, thy heart was with him when thou didst not listen to Potiphar's Isha. Baruch thee, himself without an intermediary. The Baruch of thy Abba, the Baruch which I received from Yahuwah, exceed those of my progenitors. Abraham was merely promised the land of Yasharal, as it is said, for all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it. 13 and 15. To Isaac, Yahuwah said, unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these lands. 25 and 3. But me, he Baruch, thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. 28 and 14. To the four corners of the earth. The Baruch of thy Abba, wherewith I Baruch thee, are mighty, and are added to the Baruch wherewith my progenitors Baruch me. The prince among his brethren, that was separate from his brethren. Verse 27, Benjamin is a wolf that raveneth. This is an allusion to the time when the tribe of Benjamin had to seize wives. And Shoftim 20 and 1. Also to Shaul descended from Benjamin, who defeated the surrounding enemies. Shammul Aleph 14 and 47. And even he divided the spoil, even when the son of Yasharal shall have set through Nebuchadnezzar, who exiled the nation to Babylon, he shall still divide the spoil, in being an allusion to Mordecai and Esther, Benjamin, who divided the spoil of Haman. Verse 28, all these are the 12 tribes of Yasharal. Only these and not Ephraim and Manasseh are accounted as the tribes were represented on the high priest's breastplate, and entered the covenant of the Baruch and cursed at Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. For them Moshe set up the 12 stones, and likewise Yahush in the Jordan. For them Eliah took the 12 stones from which he made the altar at Mount Carmel. Manasseh and Ephraim ranked as tribes only in respect of the division of the land to make up for the exclusion of Luai. Because remember, Luai didn't get any land. They only, they got from what other people had. And this is it. Baruch them. But surely some of them did not baruch, but rather rebuked. The meaning is, and this spoke unto them as stated above. You might then think that he did not baruch Reuben, Simeon, and Luai. Therefore, and baruch them is added, implying that he baruched all of them, and baruch them apart from what has been recorded in this chapter. So once again, just because we don't read it, does not mean that it was not done. Remember, there are some things that will not be given for our ears to hear. Same thing when Yaakov spoke unto Pharaoh. Nobody knew what was spoken but Pharaoh and Yaakov. He baruched him and he said some things to him. And that is all we needed to know. There is nothing else for us to know and need to know concerning that conversation. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. Everyone according to his baruch, according to his future destiny, each according to his particular requirements. He baruched them. Him rather than them might have been expected, since it is preceded by the singular. But he had given Yehuda the strength of a lion, Naphtali the swiftness of a hind, Benjamin the ravening of a wolf. The plural of them teaches that he then included all in the particular baruch of each. He charged them that they should all accompany Joseph, at his burial. He did this in the case Pharaoh would not permit Joseph to go. Gathered. This expression is used to denote death because the soul is gathered into its appointed place. Verse 34, a possession of a burial place. So my right to be buried there cannot be disputed. Yaakov had to go into all these details because 2 generations had passed since they left the land and might have become forgotten. Therefore, he told them that his ancestors were already buried there, thus proving his right. There they buried Abraham. Yaakov recalls these details because he wanted them to understand that only the 3 patriarchs, including himself, were to be buried in the cave. He was particularly anxious that Esau should not make the same claim for himself. For this reason, Joseph did not ask to be buried there. There is a tradition also recorded by Josephus that Esau's children did, in fact, make the claim, and it was in anticipation of it that there went up with him both chariots and horsemen. A battle ensued in which Esau's side was defeated. The verse Joseph returned into Mitzrayim, he and his brethren and all that went up with him, is a hint that none of them was killed in the fight. And if you read in the scroll of Yesher, you will see that there was a fight, and it was one of Dan's sons that, according to the scroll of Yasher, that went. He was what you would call like a pallbearer. He was carrying the sarcophagus of Yaakov, and he saw Esau looking and making gestures, and he ran with his sword drawn and he cut his head off, according to the scroll of Yasher. And that's how the fight began. And the son of Esau was captured. Joseph's first cousin was captured to be left alive, while everybody else, they fought and devastated, and those that did get away. But he was one of the sons he kept alive and put him in prison. And he stayed there as long as they were in power, and he kept him in prison. He kept him down there, and then eventually he was able to get free. But that was years later on down the line. So we do know that this thing really did happen. Are you hearing me? Yes. He gathered up his feet into the bed. He had been sitting up with his feet out of the bed, expired, and was gathered unto his people. Scripture does not state he died, and the rabbis declared our Abba Yaakov did not die. So we know which once again, we don't die, we go to sleep. So he got into bed and he closed his eyes. Now you have to understand they were brokenhearted because they were not ready to let him go. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
They were not ready to let him go. So this is what happened. All right, chapter 49. Let's see if we can get it. It has, chapter 50 has 26 verses. We can get these 26 verses. All right, chapter 50, starting at verse 1. Excuse me, and it reads. Are you going to read? Okay. Let's read 9 verses.
And Joseph fell upon his father's face, and wept upon him, and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. And the physicians embalmed Joshua. And 40 days were fulfilled for them. For so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed. And the Egyptian 70 days. And when the days of his mourning were past, speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, swear, saying, Lo, I die in my grave, which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan. There shall you bury me. And therefore let me go up, I pray thee, and bury my Abba, and I will come again. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy Abba, according as he made thee swear. And Joseph went up to bury his Abba, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Israel. And all the house of Joseph and his brethren in his Abba's house, only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And they went up with him with chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And it is so.
And it is so. 70 young men, 40 young men for embalming, and 30 for weeping, because of Baruch came with Yaakov's arrival in Mitzrayim, the famine coming to an end, and the now was Baruch. So everybody, it took them 40 days to or 40 young men for embalming, and then 30, which was given for them to mourn. And most of the time when people start telling people about mourning, they want people to mourn a day, and then the next day get up like ain't nothing ever happened. I believe that 30 days, and if 30 young men, and if you need more, long as it's healthy mourning. When it becomes unhealthy, that's when it's time to look at the root of it being unhealthy. Crying over somebody because you will not have their presence is not a sin, and it's not wrong. But when it becomes unhealthy is when you can't eat, nothing else matters, and that's all you focus on. That's when it becomes unhealthy, because now you're causing harm to your own body, and that's one of the things as a people we cannot do. Are you following me?
Yes.
And so healthy mourning, and I believe that they gave them 30 is so that they could really deal with it, because the first few weeks, you try not to think about it, and them the weeks and when you cry the hardest, because it's fresh. But that third week, you kind of can deal with it a little better. By that fourth week, you can deal with it somewhat a little better than before in the beginning. So you're able to go without, crying as much, but you're going to still cry because you're going to miss that person, especially depending on where they are or where they were in your life and who they are to you. So, if somebody come telling you and you're in a moment of grief or a moment of mourning, you should be over with that by now. You don't even have to answer them. Just walk away from them, because that's a person that's insensitive and don't know what the hell they talking about. That's important, because everybody doesn't deal with situations the same way. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important. All right, we got a few more verses, and then we'll be ready to pray, y'all. The house of Pharaoh, because one was not allowed to enter Pharaoh's palace while in mourning. So they had to wait. Did Carithi, or bow. The Midrash connects the verb with carry, a heap. Yaakov took all the gold and silver he had brought with him from Laban, made it into a heap, and gave it to Esau for his share in the cave of Machpelah. Boy, that boy had a nice heap because he wanted to make sure he stayed away. But even in that, still didn't help because he still did the stupid thing. And with him went up of their own accord, not having been ordered by Joseph. The elders, because Yaakov had been esteemed as a wise man, hence the wise, which is the meaning of elders, paid him this esteem. So when you look at a person that's an elder, if they don't have the wise anywhere in their life, or can be behind their name or in front of their name, they're not considered elders. You're not an elder just because of your age. That makes you a senior citizen or a senior. But an elder is someone who is what? Wise. Now, understand, you do have to have some type of age on you for you to have a little bit of wisdom. Are you following me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Verse 9, chariots and horsemen, because the military chiefs regarded Yaakov as a great warrior. That's important. They gave him one of those royal ceremonies. So he went out, they basically took care of him in that manner. All right, let's read, starting at verse 10. Let's do 9 verses again.
Chapter 50, verse 10. Is it 8 verses?
9.
9 verses. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, and they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation. And he observed 7 days of mourning for his Abba. And when the inhabitants of the land and the Canaanites saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, "This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites."
Mm.
That is why its name was called Abel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Jordan. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them. For his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial site. And after he had buried his Abba, Joseph returned to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his Abba. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their Abba was dead, they said, "What if Joseph hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him?" And they sent word to Joseph, saying, "Before your Abba died, he commanded, saying, 'This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the power of your Abba.' And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, 'See, we are your servants.' And Joseph said to them, 'Do not fear, for I am in the shalom of Yahuwah.'" And it is so.
And it is so very important that we understand reconciliation and the mending and the repairing of broken things. Very important. The threshing floor of Atad, it was surrounded by thorns. The Midrash declares that the kings of Canaan and the prince of Ishmael came to the battle, but on seeing Joseph's crown on Yaakov's coffin, they desisted and placed their crowns on it also. Surrounding it with crowns as a threshing floor is surrounded by a hedge of thorns. Now you have to understand what they did. He stopped. Listen what it said. The threshing floor of Atad. It was surrounded by thorns. Atad. The Midrash declares that the kings of Canaan and the prince of Ishmael came to the battle. But on seeing Joseph's crown on Yaakov's coffin, they desisted and placed their crowns on it also. Surrounding it with crowns as a threshing floor is surrounded by a hedge of thorns. You have to understand that was a great thing they had done. They acknowledged and recognized him because of how his children. Now, watch this, even though it was Joseph's crown up there, meaning they had dealings with Joseph too and knew that Joseph was a person of importance. Right. That's how they recognized that. And he had it on his Abba's, what we would look at as his on his coffin, and they stopped and put theirs on there. Right. You have to understand that's power, that's influence. Even in his sleep state, he had influence. Right. That they would put the crowns up there and march with them to take him and bury him. Well, that's amazing. His sons, but not his sons, for he had charged them, let not a Mitzrayim carry my bier for any of your sons who are the Canaanite women, but you only. His brethren, verse 14, all that went up with him on the outward journey, the Mitzrayim took precedence over the brethren, where the Mitzrayim are mentioned first, but when they saw the esteem paid to Yaakov by the inhabitants of Canaan, they gave precedence to his sons, and so here the brothers are mentioned first. Joseph's brethren saw that their Abba was dead. They saw the effect of his death in Joseph's changed behavior. During Yaakov's lifetime, Joseph had them at his table out of defense to his Abba, but ceased to invite them after his death, which we can look at that as being a time of what? Mourning. He was mourning. Because think about it, probably going through the years that he had missed, but look at how many years Abba Yahuwah gave him. He gave him 17 years to be with him. I mean, even though you don't be counting it like that still. But you don't, when you harm somebody, you don't want to let them go. Verse 16, thy father did command, they prevaricated for the sake or for the shalom. Yaakov had never given such a command since he did not suspect Joseph. So, we know they was kind of making that up because they was trying to make sure they covered themselves. He said, forgive thy Abba. Though thy Abba is dead, his Abba, his power is living, and they are his servants. For I am in the place of power. I could not harm you even if I wished. You all devise harm for me, yet Yahuwah turned it to greatness. How then could I alone harm you all? It is not for me to judge you, since you were obviously Yahuwah's agents. Yahuwah meant it for greatness. Yahuwah caused you to act so, and you did not sin against me. Verse 21, spoke kindly unto them, spoke to their heart. That is words to appeal to their heart, their reason. Before you came, people called me a slave. Your coming showed that I was of free birth. If I kill you now, they will say that you were strangers whom I passed off as my brothers. Hence, you have nothing to fear. So you have to understand, man, everybody was looking for, you had to be sure your stuff was straight or 3D. You just couldn't go in there and do anything you wanted to do. So this is important too, why things had to be carried out in the manner they had to be carried out. Very important for us to understand. What does that say to us is that you can't just do anything. You have to make sure things are done in a proper manner. Right. You do. And in doing so, this helps secure and to secure the way of others' lives. And it is so. Jesus. All right, let's finish reading. (21) all the way to verse 26.
Verse 21. Therefore, don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Joseph and his Abba's household remained in Mitzrayim. Joseph lived 110 years. He saw Ephraim's sons to the third generation. Wow. The sons of Manasseh,
sons, Machir, were recognized by Yosef. Yosef said to his brothers, I am about to die, but Yahuwah will certainly come to your aid and bring you up from this land to the land he promised Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. So Yosef made the sons of Yashua take an oath. When Yahuwah comes to your aid, you are to carry my bones up from here. And Yosef died at the age of 110. They embalmed him and placed him in a coffin in Mitzrayim. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, if we look at this, we see that his was done differently. He had to be buried there, but he said, now when y'all get up out of here, don't leave my bones up in here. Don't leave me in this place. Take me with you. But he had to govern himself and follow and that was that procedure. Were born upon Joseph's knees, as the Targum renders were brought up between his knees. They were taught in the manner that, like Yaakov did his sons, he turned around and did his grandsons. Coffin, verse 26. He was placed in a coffin to be carried up from Mitzrayim. And one, the definitive article is used here, literally the coffin, the one he had prepared for himself, the coffin in which he had been embalmed. Thereby it was known to future generations, as it is said, Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him. And Shema 13 and verse 19. So we do see some great things that were done here. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We see some great things that's done here. All right. Now we can break for lunch and come back, and we have our haftarah portions, which is Aleph Shaftim, and it is chapter 2, and we have 12 verses. And in our Brit Hadasha, we come back and we are in Aleph Kifa, and we have 9 verses. We can come back and finish that out, or we can finish them out now. What would you all like to do? You want to finish them now? You want to finish them now? All right, because we only have 12 verses and 9, and we can finish them out. All right. Let us turn our attention to Melachim Aleph, chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 1 through 12.
And it is so.
All right, begin reading that for me, please. Do 6.
Melachim Aleph, chapter 2, starting at verse 1. When the time drew near for Dawood to die, he gave a charge to Solomon his son. I am about to go to the way of all the earth, he said. So be strong, show yourself a man, and observe what Yahuwah your Savior requires.
Mm-hmm.
Walk in his ways and keep his decrees and commands. His Torah and requirement, as written in the Torah of Moshe, so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go. And that Yahuwah may keep his promise to me, if your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk diligently before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have the man on the throne of Yashua. Now you yourself know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, what he did to the 2 commanders of Yashua's armies, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Yether. He killed them, shedding their blood in peacetime as if in battle. And with that blood stained the belt around his waist and the sandal on his feet. Deal with him according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray hair go down to the grave in Shalom. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Show thyself a man, energetic and with self-control. Do not act like a child. Remember, he was the youngest of them all, and he was primarily raised by his Ema. So he's basically telling him, be energetic and act like a man, but do not act like a child, because you won't be able to succeed being a king with that type of character.
Yeah.
Keep in your heart. This can only be done by studying Yahuwah's Torah, to walk in his ways. As he is merciful, so must you be. Statutes, the precepts, the reasons for which are not known. Commandments, those which are specifically described as such, this word being used in connection with them. That is the sending of the unclean without the camp, the annulment of vows, ordinances, civil laws, testimonies, those which testify to and serve as a reminder of some past event. That is the Sabbath, which testifies to the creation of the world by Yahuwah. The festivals or the feasts, which are a reminder of episodes in Yasharal's history. So it's important that we understand everything. He gave him a charge. Once again, we're seeing how the Abbas in that time of their lives gave charges over their children, or over their sons, or over their child. Moreover, thou knowest, literally, and also thou knowest also means either this instruction that I am about to give you to destroy Joab, which because of his wickedness is also part of Yahuwah's law. Or you also know it, just as I do, did unto me what he did to Abner and Amasa. He did to me, because I had guaranteed Abner's safety while Amasa was engaged in working for me, to bring back the men of Yehuda to my side. Some explains that this refers to his slaying of Absalom. The Midrash states that Joab had revealed the letter which Dawood sent to him concerning Uriah. Shamul Bet 11 and 14. But he said, deal with him. Don't let him go by. According to thy wisdom, do not slay him until you find a pretext. For although he deserves death, yet he has fought Yahuwah's battles and also has some virtues. In Shalom, do not let him die a natural death and fall into Gehenna. And the remark is somewhat cryptic. Perhaps the meaning is that only an unnatural death is execution can atone for his sins and save him from Gehenna. This will act as a deterrent to others. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, come on, let's read. So now verse 7.
6 verses.
Just read 12. Read verse 12.
Verse 7 reads, but show kindness to the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table. For so they came to me when I fled from Absalom, your brother. And see, with you is Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who the day when I went to Mahanaim, but he came down to meet me at Yarden, and I swore to him by Yahuwah, saying, I shall not put you to death with the sword. And now, do not leave him unpunished, for you are wiser a man and know what you should do to him, and shall bring his gray hair down to the grave with blood. And Dawood slept with his Abbas and was buried in the city of Dawood. And the days Dawood reigned over Yashua were 40 years, and he reigned 7 years in Hebron and reigned 30 years in Jerusalem. And Sulamon, sat on the throne of Dawood his Abba and reigned in his stead, and his reign was firmly established. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, let's look at this briefly. Things I want to point out. Now, when Yaakov took his last breath, what was it that Joseph did? What was it that he did? He wept. He wept on his Abba's neck. He wept. Suleiman was there. What did he do? Nothing. Look, the contrast is relationship. Somebody say relationship. Relationship. And the reason why I want to bring this out, and I know it's a lot, y'all, that we're getting in this time. But the thing of it is, it's important for us to understand relationship. When you build a healthy relationship, when certain things come about in your life, guess what happens? In that moment, your moment, you will see it. You will see the loss. You will feel and experience those people's loss because they express it. You do not see Shulamon embracing Dawood because this is an indicator that he was not in his life. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Perhaps it could have been guilt. Perhaps it could have been, I did this and, it was for the sake of lust. And now, this is what's happening. But it does not show relationship. It does not show that he is losing somebody. You can't lose something that was never in your heart or never there close to you. But you see, Joseph experienced a loss. Where Shulamon, you don't see that. Are you following me?
Yes.
So he's giving him instructions. Now let's kind of look at this one as well. You're giving a young man now you're giving a man or a young man now instructions for his life, and you are about to take your last breath. You don't see or sense any remorse. These are just instructions given to him. And he's giving him what? Final charges to take out some folk. Not while he was alive, but while now he's about to die. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Important to see the details in this. Important to see relationship is key. And building healthy relationships are important throughout our way of life, period.
Right.
With thee, he was present at your anointing, not having gone over to Adoniah. With his, verse 10, with his apples, this teaches that they also were righteous, the city of Dawood. Upon the throne, it says, which is Zion. Upon the throne of Dawood, his apples, Suleiman followed in his footsteps. His kingdom was established firmly, even over the celestial, After the death of these two, so the king commanded Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and he went out and fell upon him, Shimei, so that he died. And the kingdom was established in the hand of Suleiman. He did exactly what he was told. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
When you're told to do something, just do it. Don't ask no questions. Well, why should I do it? He did it and he had no problem. He did it quickly. But the only area he failed in was keeping the Torah before him and acting like a grown man. All right. Let's turn our attention to our Brit Hadasha portions. Just Peter 1. And we're going to begin at verse 1. We only have 9 verses. When you have it, say it is so. All right.
Chapter 1.
Verse 9. Go ahead and read all the verses. 9. Because we only read 9 verses.
Okay. Start. Where I start?
Verse 1.
Okay. Kepha, an apostle of Yahushua HaMashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, elect according to the foreknowledge of Yahuwah the Abba, through sanctification of the Ruach HaKodesh, unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. Mercy unto you and shalom be multiplied. Baruch be Yahuwah Abba of our Master Yahushua HaMashiach, which according to his abundant mercy hath begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that fadeth not away, reserved in Shemayim for you, who are kept by the power of Yahuwah through belief unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time, wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations, that the trial of your belief, being much more precious than of gold, that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and esteem. Oh, not honor.
Esteem.
But then, Lord, was after that.
It just
Esteem,
one word.
okay. And esteem at the appearing of Yahushua HaMashiach, whom having not seen ye ahab, and whom though not ye see him not, yet believing, you rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of esteem, receiving the end of your belief, even the salvation of your souls. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. An apostle of Yahushua Mashiach to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia Minor, and Bithynia, which is Turkey, Minor, Asia Minor, Turkey, Northwest Turkey, Bithynia, Galatia, which is Galatia, Pontius. Let's look at these. Pontius, northeastern Turkey, and Turkey. Elect according to the foreknowledge of power, the Abba, through sanctification of the Ruach, to obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahushua the Mashiach. Esteem and shalom be multiplied to you. Now listen what he's talking about. He said to the strangers, an apostle of Yahushua the Mashiach to the strangers scattered throughout Pontius. He's talking about the 10 tribes of Yasharal. He's not talking about anybody else. This is where misconceptions come in, because he turns around and reiterates who he's talking to in verse 2. Elect according to the foreknowledge. Strangers, but we're also the elect.
That's right.
According to foreknowledge of power, the Abba, through sanctification of the Ruach, to obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahushua the Mashiach. Esteem and shalom be multiplied to you. Baruch be the power and Abba to our master Yahushua Mashiach, which according to his abundant mercy has birthed us again to a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahushua Mashiach from the dead. Now, once again, has birthed us again, meaning has given us an opportunity to do this thing in the right manner. Are you following me?
Yes.
To an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, that faded not away, reserved in Shemayim for you. Talking about us, who are kept by the power through belief to salvation, ready to be revealed at the end of time. Every time the word belief is mentioned in the renewed covenant writings, it takes us back to Shema Yasharal. Hear, O Yasharal, in Devarim 6 and 4, and to Torah obedience. It's important that we understand. The reason I say belief and not faith is because when you look at the word faith, faith comes from the deity Phaetus. And Phaetus was a female goddess that they worship. So we don't use the word faith, we use the word belief. Belief. It is our belief that leads us to salvation. And every time you hear the word belief in the renewed covenant writings, it takes us back to the Shema Yasharal. Hear, O Yasharal, in Devarim 6 and 4, and to Torah obedience. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, in verse 4, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled. Wait, but Baruch be the power of the Abba, our Mashiach, our sovereign Yahushua Mashiach, which according to his abundant mercy has birthed us again to a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahushua Mashiach from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible. Now you have to understand that is one whole verse, not two. 3, 4, and 5 is one statement or one verse. There's a comma there. So remove that number and read it in the manner. Resurrection of Yahushua Mashiach from the dead to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that fadeth not away, reserved in Shemayim for you, who are kept by the power of Yahuwah through belief to salvation, ready to be revealed at the end of time. So once again, we have been what? We have Yahushua was the Mashiach was resurrected from the dead to an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, and that fadeth not away, reserved for you or for us, who are kept by the power through our what? Belief to what? Salvation, ready to be revealed at the end of time. We greatly rejoice. Why do we rejoice? Because we know that we have something greater to look forward to. For now a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold what? Temptations. 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 Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Temptations. Temptations come not to make you fall, but to make us stronger. They make us stronger. It's in the writings. Now listen at what it says. Verse 7. Such trials show the proven character of your what? Belief. Being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it be tried with fire, might be found to praise and esteem at the appearing of Yahushua our Mashiach. Now you have to understand something. Many people have given up and continue to give up when it comes to this walk. And because many have given up, it is because when the trying of their belief came, or when they were tried, they ended up forfeiting it. Why? Because their belief was not as strong as what was coming out of their mouths. Now, once again, I understand this is a bit and it's a lot to take in the time frame. And I know I'm looking at the time clock. We've been in class for 3 hours. Some people be on the job for 8 hours and take a 30-minute to an hour break. Are you following me?
Yes. Some
people be in class for 6 and 7 hours. So the bottom line is how bad do you want it? How bad do you want the information, and how much or how do you want to truly walk in this? I understand, people have other things to do, and that's great. But it's important that we understand why we are at a place of, and many of us are at a disadvantage. Why? Because we don't know how to fight the great fight of belief.
Right.
When trials come to prove our character of belief, we falter. There was some people we know, couples and people we know that have lost or have thrown away their belief, and the way they're talking, you'd be like, what in the world? We just seen them some years ago. And now all of a sudden they're talking like they never walked in truth before ever a day in their lives.
Right.
Why? Because what is your belief rooted in? Is it rooted in a relationship with the Abba through Yahushua our Mashiach? Or is your relationship with him rooted in only a knowledge that you have of him? You have to spend quality time with him. And watch this. And even if he never speaks a word to you, his Torah speaks to us consistently on a day-to-day basis. And so this is Kepha's way of telling us that these trials are going to prove our character of belief, and because it is much more precious than gold that perishes. Though it be tried with fire, might be found to praise and esteem at the appearing of Yahushua Mashiach. Many people don't believe that he is coming back. Many people don't believe that he is real. And they are giving up. Yes, we have trials. Yes, we have tribulations. Some stuff comes to rattle you. Some stuff comes to take the very wind out of your sail. Some stuff makes you feel like you've been lunchboxed 3 or 4 times at one time.
Right.
But we got to remember who we trusting in and what are we trusting in. Whom having not seen, you Ahab, in whom though now you see him not yet believing. Do you not know that when Abba Yahuwah looks at us and we stand and believe, though we've never seen him, we're only going by what? A recording, that which is witnessed of him by men, but the witness of Yahuwah is what? Greater.
That's right.
And this is why we believe, though we've never seen him.
Right.
And not only that, look at what he said, whom having not seen, you Ahab. Many of us don't Ahab him. That is why our relationship is raggedy and unstable. Because we don't Ahab him. You know how you hear people say, somebody asks an Asha, will you marry me? And she says, well, I'm not ready right now. I'm not ready for that life. Why? Because there is no Ahab there.
Right.
But when the Ahab is there, I don't care if they're living in a box. I don't care if they don't have what everybody else expects them to have. Because you Ahab them, you're going to say what? Yes. You're going to give them a yes. Because you what? Ahab them. The reason we cannot really maximize our walk and can't do certain things is because we don't Ahab him.
That's right.
We ain't in it for the long haul. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. Many of us are not in it for the long haul, but when you're in it for the long haul, you ground yourself in the moment of strength.
That's right.
Even in your trials, you ground yourself in the moment of his Ahab and his promises. In whom though you see him not yet believing, you rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of esteem. Are you feeling me?
Yes.
Belief can only come through trust, and we will only be expecting a Mashiach if there was a Torah. No Torah means no Mashiach. So once again, the word belief takes us back to the Torah to trust in Yahuwah. Without it, we can't have it. And this is very important because our people are losing. Many people talking about, I feel like giving up. I can't, where am I going to go back to? Where am I going to go? And even if I had a secure, concrete place, solid place, I still wouldn't want to go there.
Right.
After understanding who I am and whose I am, what sense would it make to go back?
Right.
Remember when the writing said it's like a dog going back to its vomit.
That's right.
And a pig going back to its wallowing hole. I ain't trying to go back that way. I don't want to go back that way. I found life. I found truth.
That's right.
I found me. And if I leave that or you leave it, you lose you. Are you following me?
Yes.
We can't do that. Don't. You may be tempted to slow up on your momentum, but never be tempted to leave. Because if you leave, where are you going to go? That's just like saying, we under this shade, and I know it's raining brimstone and fire, but it's getting a little tight here. I'm going to run and try to make it over there. You're going to get your behind burnt up. It's safety in that place. It may be tight and it may be a little rough, but it's safety there. Why? Because he has ordained it. He has predestined that place. That's why we have to make it. Are you following me?
Yes.
Don't listen to what other people are saying. Don't buy into all that stuff people are saying.
Right.
Many people don't know what they believe. They just believe because the next person believes. You have to be fully persuaded that everybody in the world stop believing. You better believe. Just because everybody else looks and gets turned doesn't mean you have to. You better keep your eyes closed to that mess.
Right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
And secure yourself in his walk. This is a life that is fulfilling. Why is it a life that is fulfilling? Because it shows you who you are. And if you're willing to throw away knowing who you are, you never got into this truth for the right reason anyway. I don't care what comes our way. I don't care what comes to the door of your life. You should never want to throw away this which is so valuable.
Yes.
Because man didn't give this to us.
Right. Right.
Abba Yahuwah did through his son Yahushua HaMashiach.
That's right.
Verse 9. Obtaining the goal of your belief, even the deliverance of your soul. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Even the deliverance of your soul. Obtaining the goal of your belief, even the deliverance of your soul. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is how we are delivered from these trials. This is how we become more than overcomers. By believing in the Abba who will bring us out of these trials and tribulations that seem to become so heavy upon our lives. But if we walk away from it, then where is your hope coming from?
Right.
If we walk away from this, then where are you going to get your help from?
Right.
If you weren't getting any help before you came into this walk, what makes you think if you walk away from it, you're going to get any help?
Right.
It may be strain and it might be a little bit coming through, but at least that strain little bit is coming through and more than nothing that comes through.
That's right.
So I pray on this Yom, on this day of celebration and commemoration, that you embrace who you are and let nothing and no one shake you from that. No matter of your relationships, whether great, whether building, whether those that you believe were strong now are not as strong as you thought they were, whatever it may be, don't allow yourself to be taken away from this truth that he's given unto us, his set apart people. Always remember, we are a special people to him. And because we are a special people to him, guess what? You're going to have special trials that are going to come against you.
Yeah.
Tailor-made to make you feel indifferent and to make you feel like it ain't worth it. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Every time somebody calls you out your name, everybody calls you crazy, stupid, or want to ostracize you or push you to the side and reject you, let me tell you something, it's worth it. Because at least you know they're doing it because you're walking in truth. But if you weren't walking in truth, you just know, well, they just hating. They hate you, they hate me because they know we're walking in truth. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. Once again, verse 9, obtaining the goal of your belief, even the deliverance of your soul. That means when we obtain that belief, the deliverance of our soul, everything that comes to try to destroy us, everything that comes to try to break our belief down and cause us to stop believing in the manner we believe, Yahuwah will deliver us from it. But you gotta first maintain that belief. And you can't just maintain it through your speech. It has to come through your lifestyle.
That's right.
Very important. Once again, I want to say to you, Todah, 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 for spending this time with us in our Torah class. Normally we come out about 3:30 and break, but because we had few verses to finish that way, finish the rest of our night resting, and I pray that you will too. Now, we don't rest when we break and come back, but that this will be a time that you will consider everything that you have heard and that you will take it to heart and apply it to your lives. Once again, I pray that you keep your head up, keep your shoulders square, keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because we can't go wrong when we follow his instructions for our lives. And never ever let anyone persuade you to stop believing in the Mashiach. Never let anyone cause you to believe that his life or what they would say is not relevant or that it's a lie. Don't believe that. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Read and study for yourselves. Build a relationship with him for yourself. And don't let anybody destroy that relationship.
That's right.
Once again, I want to encourage you to enjoy this time of celebration, commemoration. Praise Abba Yahuwah for yet another Yom that he has allowed us to see and allowed us to celebrate it. Watch this. Without anybody knocking on our doors, without anybody challenging you. And if you are challenged, then guess what? Count it all joy.
That's right.
Count it all joy. Because you are showing people that what you were doing, you're not going to stop. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Because this is the working of your belief. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So once again, stay encouraged, be encouraged, and continue to be the set apart people that Yahuwah has called you and has called me to be. I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, this is the place where the Torah does the body excellent. Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where only the champions reside. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.